Hey guys, welcome to Green Bean Fiction. So in today's video we are gonna see, what if Deku had power of Haki and had Harem? Before starting, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you are interested in MHA fanfictions. This story is the Yonko by Camdog 2. Now without wasting any more time, let's dive in. 4-year Izuku Midoriya has been on cloud 9 for the last couple days. He had finally gotten a quirk, and they were the awesome powers he has seen in his dreams. His classmates were being nice to him. Kachin was even back to his old nice self again, and to top it off, his mom was talking him to a hero festival in Hosu so he could meet his favorite heroes and even get their autographs. Things were awesome again. It was a little after noon and the two decided to take a rest in the nearby park, and Izuku was already vibrating with happiness. He had already got 5 autographs and he knew All Might was going to be there later. Izuku was running around exploring when he ran into someone and fell to the ground. "Need a hand?" Izuku heard the person ask. Just as he was about to apologize for running into them, he looked at the person and froze. Mezzo Shoji, seeing the look on the other boy's face, couldn't help but sigh. Ever since he had gotten his duplicate arm quirk, people have been avoiding him and his friends wouldn't talk to him anymore. All he could do is wait for the outburst. "Awesome. Wait, what?" Izuku couldn't help but stare star-eyed at the other boy's quirk. It gave him 4 extra arms. It actually reminded him of that nice lady from his vision. What was her name again? Robin. Izuku shook the thoughts from his head. What a cool quirk. What can those tentacles do? Izuku asked excitedly. Shoji could only stare in shock as he absently answered. I can use them to grow duplicates of certain body parts. Which just got another awesome from Izuku. Suddenly Izuku remembered he ran into the boy and asking about his quirk without even apologizing or introducing himself like his mom taught him. "Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't watching where I was going. I'm Izuku Midoriya, by the way," he said cheerfully, happy that he didn't stutter like he usually did. "Mezzo Shoji." The other boy said a lot more calmly now that he thought he wasn't going to be made fun of again. "And do you really think my quirk is that cool?" Mezzo asked with Izuku nodding. "Yeah, it's awesome. Sorry about staring earlier, I just really love seeing new quirks." Mezzo just let out a small grin. "It's no problem, Izuku. What about you? What can your quirk do?" Just as Izuku was about to reply, they were interrupted by someone else. "Whatever it is, there's no way it can beat me." This was followed by a tired and quite dark shadow, "Please." And the two turned to see a boy around their age with a crow head and a shadow-like being around him. "What? You know it's true. And it looks like we're about to be able to prove it," Dark Shadow said as he pointed, and the boy was startled to see the 2 boys walking toward him. Just before he could try and explain, the green-haired boy spoke up. "A living shadow-like being. What a cool quirk." With the taller nodding. "It is rather impressive." Tokiyami, while slightly annoyed by the smug look on Dark Shadow's face, was relieved the 2 boys weren't mad. "Thank you, and I'm sorry for him. I know how annoying he can be." The boy ignored his quirk's childish cry of, "Am not. I am Fumikage Tokiyami. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Izuku Midoriya. I am Mezzo Shoji. So are you guys here for the festival?" Izuku asked, with the 2 other boys nodding, causing Izuku to grin. "Yeah, me too. I've always loved heroes, and now that I've got my quirk I can become one too." "What is it?" a girl's voice asked, causing them to see a girl with purple hair and odd-looking ears. Well, it's kinda a long story, Izuku stuttered, caused by talking to a girl. "Kyoka Jiru." She introduced herself, laughing to herself at Izuku's behavior before turning to the other 2 boys, causing them to introduce themselves before Mezzo pointed at Izuku. The stuttering one is Izuku Midoriya. This caused Izuku to blush and stutter more, and Kyoka to laugh harder. As this was going on, the parents of the kids had made their way over to each other and were introducing themselves to the parents of their children's new friends. All secretly happy that they were making new friends, with each one having trouble in some shape and form when it comes to friends. Though Kyoka's mom had to stop her dad when he realized they were boys. Back with the group, Kyoka was bringing back up the earlier discussion. "So Izuku, you said it was a long story, but we've got time. I mean, our parents are taking, and you know how long adults like to do that." "Well, if you're sure," Izuku said, causing the 3 to nod. "Well, ever since I can remember I've been having weird dreams. Dreams of people with powers more powerful than any quirk I've ever seen." "What kind of powers?" Tokiyami asked, interested, as well as Kyoka and Mezzo. Izuku thought for a minute, deciding which ones to talk about. I saw people stealing people's life, creating earthquakes, becoming dragons the size of cities, creating, controlling and becoming elements. Izuku listed off some of the most powerful powers he had seen, most of which he noticed came from those who held a particular title. His three new friends staring awed at what they were told. Seeing this, Izuku continued, "Anyway, this continued on for a few years until one day in the park I saw a kid being picked on by three boys." Izuku said, leaving out the fact one of them was his friend. "Anyway, when I tried to step in, they turned their bullying to me. Just as I was about to be hurt, I had another vision, which was strange because I've only ever had them when I was asleep. Anyway, I had no other options, so I did as the man in the vision did, and the next thing I know the bully was had slammed into the exact barrier I saw in my vision. After that there isn't much to tell. Visions flooded my head, and the next thing I know I was waking up in the doctor's office talking about my quirk." Izuku finished his story. "That's amazing. Can we see the barrier?" Fumikage asked, wanting to see if Izuku was telling the truth, with Mezo and Kyoka nodding in agreement. Izuku just grinned. "Sure, no problem," Izuku exclaimed as he crossed his arms and then his fingers. The second he did it, something shot out of the ground and his new friends could only stare in amazement. The kids were floored at the sight and the confrontation that what their friend was saying was true, and even the parents were staring while Inko was beaming with pride. "So you were telling the truth?" Kyoka started, only to realize something. "Wait, if you can do this and you saw it in a vision, does that mean you can?" She trailed off, just staring with wide eyes, while Mezo and Fumikage did the same, coming to the same realization. Izuku, knowing what they were thinking, just poked his finger slightly and the three saw tiny blue cracks appear in the air, and just for an instant all four felt a tiny rumble, but it was enough to prove he was telling the truth. After that it was just heap of discussions when they talked about their favorite heroes and more about their quirks. Funny enough, it was actually Fumikage that named Izuku's quirk. Izuku up to this point had only referred to them as powers, so when the shadow quirk user, whose quirk was busy sulking at the fact there was no way to prove it was better, asked if these powers had a name. Izuku thought for a moment before he uttered two words: devil fruits. And with that, Izuku quirk was named. Mezo actually brought up a concept that excited Izuku to the core and something he couldn't wait to try. Mezo questioned if Izuku could do other things from his visions like martial arts and the likes. Izuku's face lit up when he heard this. After that it was time for them to head back to the festival, but when they looked they saw it was jammed back with people. Not wanting to risk being separated, the parents decided to go around a back way so they can get back earlier. And this is where the story truly begins. The group was walking past a random building when they suddenly heard a commotion. Turning, they saw a frightening sight. It was a well-known villain being chased by a rather unpopular hero on the roofs. The villain was known as Wave. His quirk was Wave. He could create a wave out of any non-living thing he touched. The hero was Booster Gold, whose quirk was Beam Shot. It allowed him to fire yellow beams that was at their strongest could stun someone for a few seconds. The reason he was so unpopular was he constantly put other citizens and heroes in danger just to show off. Wave, spotting the group, smirked as he suddenly jumped from rooftop to rooftop, heading toward the building right next to the group, and before they could do anything, Wave landed, sending the building crashing down on the terrified group. The kids were paralyzed with fear and were about to be crushed when their parents pushed them out of the way. The kids could only stare in horror as their parents were crushed as they cried out for them. After the dust cleared, the four were beyond relieved to see their parents were alive but horribly injured and trapped under debris. "Mom, don't worry, we'll get you out," Izuku yelled in tears as he and the other three ran to help their parents, only to be stopped by Mezo's father. "No, it's too dangerous. Stay back," he yelled, causing the kids to stop and feel like they're about to have a mental breakdown. Izuku suddenly remembered something. "Mr. Gold, please help." And the kids grew hope as they remembered the hero, only for it to turn to shock and horror as they saw him run off after the villain, either not knowing or caring about their trapped parents. Izuku could only stare in horror as a hero ignored someone in danger. Mr. Gold, please he. "Sorry kid, no time for autographs," the hero shouted before running off after the villain, leaving Izuku in a shocked daze. The other heroes. Kyoka shouted, "We can go get them and they'll rescue our parents for sure," she stated confidently. "A hero will save them." The boys quickly agreed and the four split up to find a hero to save their parents. Leaving their parents, who could only pray for their children's success. Mezo Pav, This couldn't be happening, Mezzo thought as he ran through the crowds trying to find any hero that can help. Today was one of the best as far as he could remember, as he finally had friends that didn't think twice on the way he looked, and now he was searching for someone to help his and his new friend's parents. He was about to turn a corner when he overheard something. "You waste my time, woman, on pointless things like this. Shoto was created for the sole purpose of surpassing that fool, All Might. He exists for no other reason. Do not disturb me with this nonsense again, or there will be consequences." The man finished with a growl and he stepped into view, revealing himself to be the flame hero, Endeavor. Relief flooded through him as Mezzo ran over to the number 2 hero. "If anyone can help, he can." Endeavor's face morphed into an annoyed scowl as he approached. "Please, sir, you have to help. I don't have time for the petty problems of a child. Go bug your parents, brat." Endeavor spoke in an annoyed, dismissive tone. "Please, my parents are unimportant with problems beneath me." Mezzo could do nothing but fall to his knees as he weakly whispered. "But my family." Endeavor, having enough of the whining brat, decided to set him straight. "All right, brat, let me set a few things straight. Family is all about worth and value. If they have neither, then they're worthless, and if your parents have to rely on a kid like you, they are the definition of the word." And with that, Endeavor left, leaving Mezzo laying there in a daze. "Kyoka Pav, come on, come on, come on. There has to be someone that can help." Kyoka thought frantically as she searched for any possible help. Suddenly a large cheer erupted from close by and Kyoka ran toward it, hoping to find a pro hero. And she was not disappointed. "Let's give a final round of applause for Hive Queen." The announcer spoke as the crowd went wild and Kyoka perked up. Hive Queen was a well-known hero who specialized in rescue. Her quirk was named Hive. It allowed her to use the millions of super-powered instincts for a variety of things. If she helped, their parents would be saved for sure. Kyoka wasted no further time and snuck backstage to try and get her help. A few seconds later she spotted the woman and ran over, but before she could reach her, the 4-year-old was gently grabbed by security who were about to escort her out when a voice stopped her. "Now what do you think you're doing? Throwing out a small girl, and you call yourself men?" They turned around and came face to face with Hive Queen. The two instantly gently put her down. As Hive Queen then spoke to her. "And what is a little cutie like you sneaking around like she's hiding something?" Hive spoke. "Well, I need your help." Juro stuttered, trying to get her nerves under control. "Ah, now I see your problem." HQ spoke, which surprised the 4-year-old Burr. Before Kyoka could say anything, Hive spoke again. "Clearly this girl needs a confidence boost." "Well, don't worry, kid. Hive Queen is the hero for the job." The hero spoke with a grin and a pumped fist. But TT, that's not it. My parents are." Kyoka tried again, only to once again be talked over. "Oh, so you ditched your parents? So young and already a rebel. I like it." Hive gave a thumbs up. "Don't worry, kid, this'll be quick. Now clearly the main issue is that you lack confidence. No one's ever going to respect you if you stay like that. Actually, you'll just get stepped on if you stay like that. Remember, in this world there are those that leads and those that follows. Make sure you know which one you are." Having said her piece, Hive Queen turned and walked away as newscasters and paparazzi covered her, but before she could fully leave she heard a quiet, "But you have to." Seeing all the reporters around, she saw this as the perfect chance to use one of her signature lines. "Honey, I don't have to do anything, I'm a queen after all." And with that, Hive Queen walked off, followed by the press as Kyoka was absent-mindedly escorted out. Fumikage Pav. Fumikage was the calmest out of the 4, but that was only because Dark Shadow was taking care of the freaking out. "Damn, what does it take to get some respect around here?" An annoyed and familiar voice spoke as Booster Gold stood on a street corner, annoyed at the fact he wasn't getting attention. Deciding it was better than nothing, Fumikage spoke up, getting the hero attention. "Booster Gold, please, we require your assistance." Booster, who was on his phone trying to let people know where he was, just waved his hand dismissively. "Not now, kid, I'll give you an autograph." "But sir, please." "I said piss off, kid, I don't have time to worry about your worthless shit." Booster yelled, his anger at being ignored in favor of other heroes finally getting the best of him. Besides, no else was around and who would take a brat's word over his a hero. It was at this point Dark Shadow finally had enough. "Look here jackass, our parents are in trouble because of your dumbass actions, so now you're going to help or I'll kick your ass." Dark Shadow shouted, scaring the crap out of the hero and causing him to activate his quirk, firing a beam of light at the shadow, hitting the quirk and dealing extra damage due to its weakness to light. Seeing this, Booster Gold regained his confidence as he grinned arrogantly at the 4-year-old child. "Not a bad quirk, kid, though it doesn't hold a candle to mine, of course, though one day you might just be able to become semi-famous and successful. That's what being a hero is all about. So work hard and one day you could become just like me or as close as someone like you can get." And with that, Booster strutted off, trying to find people who could actually appreciate him, leaving the bird-headed child alone with his darkly glaring quirk. Izuku Pav. Izuku was in tears as he ran desperately to try and find anyone that could help. He was pathetic. He had all these powers, yet he didn't have the control needed to save them, and even if he did, he had no way of stopping and healing their wounds. So all Izuku could do is pray for a miracle. "Ha, ha, ha, ha. Fear not, hope has arrived, for I am here." It was as if the world was taken off his shoulders and relief flooded him. Shaking like a leaf, Izuku faced the source of the noise, praying it was who he thought it was, and there he stood. The #1 hero. The symbol of peace. All Might. Izuku was watching as All Might stood there surrounded by reporters and fans, smiling and laughing like always. Izuku's heart dropped as he knew theirs was no way he was going to be able to get All Might's attention with all of these people. If only he could get some kind of sign. Izuku's eyes shot open as he remembered something. Taking off his backpack, he took out his autograph book, found an empty page and wrote in big letters, "Help." Once that was done, he spotted a street light that will give everyone a clear view of him. Using the Gum Gum ability, he stretched his arm, grabbed the top and rocketed himself to the top. Once he landed, he opened his notebook to the page he just wrote and turned it to the direction of All Might, praying the #1 hero would see it. "Come on All Might, please notice," Izuku thought frantically to himself as he tried to get the attention of the symbol of peace. Unfortunately, Izuku lost his footing, causing him to fall off the street lamp, dropping his notebook in the process. Izuku was bracing himself for the impact when he felt he was caught by someone. Opening his eyes, he was shocked to see he was caught by All Might himself. "It's nice to know I have such dedicated fans, but they're all easier ways to get an autotroph, you know." All Might laughed, having not noticed Izuku until the child fell as he took the notebook and found an empty page to give a double-page spread of his signature before handing it back to the young lad. "There you go, young man. Now don't go trying that again, you might not be as lucky next time," All Might said, wagging his finger with his signature grin. Anything Izuku could have said was drowned out by the cheering crowd as he was pushed and shoved back before he was right back to where he started. Izuku felt like crying again. He was right back to where he started. Knowing he lost the one chance at getting All Might's help, Izuku ran back to where his mom and the others were trapped, hoping his friends were more successful. Later, the four had meet back up, and to their despair they weren't going to have any help. Things were only made worse when they saw the state of their parents. They were losing a lot of blood and were getting pale because of it. "What do we do? What do we do?" Kyoka asked frantically, having no idea how to help. "We have to lift it," Mezzo said quietly. Izuku nodded in agreement. "It's not heavy, it's unstable. If we move it carefully we should be able to lift it without too much damage." Fumikage nodded. "And while we handle that, Dark Shadow can carefully drag them out from underneath the rubble." Kyoka nodded shakily as they ignored their parents' protest. "Okay, on 3. Izuku said as he and the others grabbed hold of anything solid they could find. 1, 2, 3 left. Izuku shouted as he and the others lifted with everything they had. At first nothing happened, but slowly they could feel the rubble start to rise as hope began to rise in everyone's heart. However, just as Dark Shadow was about to start rescuing the parents, some of the rubble gave way and soon a low hiss sound was heard by the adults who frantically tried to get their children away. "Mezzo, you have to get away. There's a gas leak," Mezzo's father shouted despite to make them understand. "We can save you, Dad. Just hold on," Mezzo shouted, trying with all his strength to lift the debris. "Fumikage, it's too late. You have to get safety now," his father ordered, trying to get his son to safety. "We will all be safe, father. A little more and Dark Shadow can save you." Fumikage struggled to keep it together as Dark Shadow desperately looked for an opening. "Kyo, baby, Please, you'll die if you stay. Kyoka's father cried fully at the thought of his daughter dying trying to save him. Shut up, I'm going to save you and mommy, Kyoka said, crying just as much as her father. Please Izu, forget us and live. You have a wonderful future ahead of you, don't waste it because of us. Inko pleaded while bawling her eyes out. Izuku, hearing this, remembered what he always wanted, to be a hero who saves people with a smile on his face, so with that in mind he put on the best he could. Dee, don't worry mom, we'll save all of you like true he. Boom. The explosion knocked the four kids back as the crumbled building became a giant ball of fire and Izuku could only stare in horror. Until a shout of, Mezzo, brought him out of it as Izuku looked on in horror at the passed out but luckily still breathing Dupley arm user's face and the scars now on it. Izuku ran over to see if there was anything he could do but tripped and fell over something in his haste. Izuku got up and saw what tripped him. It was his autograph book open to the page side by All Might. We can't stay here, Izuku spoke suddenly and quietly, causing the two still conscious members. What? Kyoka shouted, surprised, and was even more shocked when she saw Fumikage nodding and bending down to grab Mezzo with Dark Shadow's assistance. Why are we leaving? The police are coming and the heroes can't be that far behind. If this was true, even now they could hear the sound of police steadily getting louder. Because there's no reason to. Our parents are dead and I don't know about you but I don't have any family left. Fumikage finished before gaining a rather dark look on his face. Besides, I think today has proven how useless heroes and cops can be. He finished harshly. I don't have anyone either. I can't remember the last time I saw my dad. Izuku muttered, all the while just staring at the All Might signature. I've got no one either. Mezzo muttering, having regaining consciousness before looking over at Kyoka, who, knowing what they were wondering, just shook her head. So are we really going to do this? Kyoka asked, making sure they are really going to do this, and she saw the three boys nod, though Izuku's was absent-minded. Taking a deep breath, she nodded. All right, let's do it. And with that the group ran off, heading off into the unknown. Later, Toshinori Yagi, also known by his hero name All Might, could only sigh sadly as he looked over the scene, sadly, as the bodies were recovered from the wreckage. He was among the few heroes who decided to investigate the explosion despite there being hundreds of heroes in town for the festival. He was knocked out of his thoughts when one of the police asked for aid to move another piece debris so they could retrieve the last body. He was about to move when Hive Queen sent a swarm of instincts to move the debris, which they died, and it was revealed to be a middle-aged woman with purple hair and odd ear lobes. All Might just felt worse, but something did make him curious. Hive Queen had a confused look on her face and he could have sworn he heard her mutter, but she said her parents, before a look of realization and horror crossed her face as her hands shot to her mouth, her knees buckled and tears flowed freely down her face. All Might was about to go and try to comfort her on whatever's wrong when he was handed a list of the victim's identity thanks to surviving IDs. All Might could only sigh again and was about to head over to Hive Queen when he stepped on something. Curiosity getting the better of him, he bent down and picked it up and was shocked. It was a notebook, a very familiar notebook, and the only thing All Might could do was stare at the signature he gave that very afternoon. The page was damaged and was hanging off the boon, causing something to catch his attention on the previous page, so he turned it and felt his heart sink at the single word staring back at him. Help. All Might could only clench the book tightly in his hands as realization set in. The young man wasn't doing a dangerous stunt to get an autograph, he was trying to get the attention of the hero that was supposed to always save the day, because he was desperate to save someone he loved, and he failed the young man. I don't even know his name. All Might realized as he looked at the cover to see if he could find a name. There we are. Izuku Midoriya. All Might thought before realization hit, and he scanned the casualty list before he found it. Inko Midoriya. And with that, All Might truly felt a wave of depression he hadn't felt since his own mother figure now, only it was a million times worse considering how much younger Midoriya is compared to how old he was when he lost Nana. Toshinori Yagi could only hang his head in shame. I truly am sorry, young Midoriya. It had been a few hours since the four had ran, and right now they were resting in an abandoned building as they caught their breath. Well, what do we now? We can't exactly live like this forever, you know. Kyoka asked, annoyed now that everyone's calmed down. I know it was a spur of the moment thing and I'm sorry. But right now we should focus on getting food. I've got money. Izuku said as he looked out the window with that vacant look still in his eyes. Don't worry, I've got enough to get food for a few days. Well, that's a relief. Kyoka spoke bitterly as she slid her back against the wall. How did this happen? I mean, after all that. Being blown up, Mezzo getting scarred, our parents are dead and we're hiding in a run-down building and not one of us is crying. I mean, we're 4 years old, for God's sakes. Kyoka said, her emotions finally getting the best of her. It's because this world is fake and rotten. Izuku spoke quietly. I mean, what else can it be when all those heroes were right down the street and not one of them could save our parents? Izuku said while also saying the word hero sarcastically. The other three looked down in thought as they remembered the experiences they had with pro-heroes. Mezzo clenched his fist as he remembered his meeting with Endeavor. He remembered how the flame hero dismissed him and his family as useless before dismissing the value of family altogether when the man was lucky enough to still have one. Fumikage was seething in silent anger and Dark Shadow was growling like a feral animal as they remembered meeting with the hero who caused this in the first place. How he completely dismissed their cry for help when it was his job to help people, and how he gloated after he attacked a child. The thing that pissed him off the most was the gal to say to Fumikage could be like him someday. Fumikage has given a couple of thoughts to being a hero, but if it turned him into anything like Booster Gold, then forget it. Unlike the other two, Kyoka was not condemning the hero she spoke to, rather she was considering the words Hive Queen spoke to her and seeing some truth in them, however in a twisted and disturbing way. If she power and could have force people to do what she wanted, then their parents would still be alive, but as it were she no power and no way to push anyone around. Izuku's right. Fumikage gaining their attention. There are no real heroes left in the world, not even All Might. If there were real heroes, our parents would still be alive. It's not just heroes, it's the world. Society isn't going to care about 4 orphans. We might as well trash in the world's eyes. Mezzo spoke angrily at how easily they were discarded. So what are we going to do? Kyoka asked despairingly as they all tried to think of a plan. And it was silent until we take it for ourselves. A voice spoke quietly as 3 heads turned to the green-haired boy questioningly. This world, we take it and use it as we see fit. Izuku spoke louder and with more confidence. Izuku, do you have any idea how crazy that sounds? We're 4, for God's sake. Mezzo said, losing his composure for the first time since their parents died. How the hell would we even do that? We have nothing. We are nothing and we can do nothing. You've lost your mind. He finished his protest with Kyoka and Fumikage nodding in agreement. Izuku just grinned. Simple Mezzo, we use your suggestion. At their questioning look he let out a little laugh before taping his head. We use the memories. Seeing their disbelieving looks, Izuku quickly explained. Now just hear me out. You see, I didn't just get their memories on how to use their powers, I got every single memory from birth to death archived and ready to use in a moment's notice. Then there are just so many different kinds of people. From kings to soldiers, crime bosses, warlords, and do much more. With this knowledge we have all the information we need to start. Of course we'd need to train our quirks to get strong enough, but I knew we'd get there eventually. This caused the 3 to look at each other uncertain. But you know, it's funny. All of your issues were about how it was impossible to do it. Not if it were evil or not. Izuku finished as the 3's eyes widened in realization. They didn't even think about if it were right or wrong, just if it could be done. I mean, it's not like the world gives a damn about us. Kyoka said, rubbing the back of her head. We do need a way to survive now. Mezzo spoke slowly, coming around to the idea. Are you sure we can do this, Izuku? Because once we start there are only 2 ways this can end, so are you committed? Fumikage questioned seriously. Izuku closed his eyes as he thought about his words. Right now, we're all in the depths of hell, and this is the only way out. So of course I'm committed. This is the only way out and I'm willing to do anything to get out. This world is rotten, so why not try to rule it myself? But I can't do it alone. So what do you say? Will you help me create a world shaped in our image and design? Izuku asked as he put his hand out. A world where family actually means something again, and I'll do anything to protect it. Mezzo said as he walked forwards and put his hand on top of Izuku. A world where being strong does not mean being in the spotlight and be just as effective and dangerous in the shadows. Fumikage spoke as he approached and put his hand in the pile with Dark Shadow doing the same. A world where we are in control, where we give the orders and the world follows what we order. Kyoka said as she walked up and placed her hand in the group. None of them knew it then. Now of them knew that in that moment history would be forever changed and those four would bring about a new era. And all after one bad day. 10 years later. That dream again, huh? 14-year Izuku said to himself as he woke up one morning with the same feeling of nostalgia he always had when he dreamed of that day. To think we would achieve this much in just 10 years. Izuku spoke to himself as two lumps in the bed began to move, causing Izuku, who noticed this, to smirk. Still, though, I wouldn't trade it for anything. Izuku spoke as two naked figures revealed themselves. Morning, Tala Giganta. Izuku spoke to the two as they slowly woke up. Morning, baby. Tala spoke in that beautiful accent of hers before pulling him into a heated kiss. Before she could go any further, she was shoved off the bed by Giganta, who then proceeded to pin Izuku to the bed with his face right between her breast. So Izu, want to continue where we left off last night? She asked with barley-controlled lust. Therefore she was disappointed when Izuku gently got her off him. As much as I would love to go another round with the two, I have a meeting I need to prepare for with the Yakuza. Apparently their boss, Chisaki, wants to make a deal. Izuku spoke as he walked towards his bathroom's shower. Huh, of course the one-time earphones is out on a mission, he's got to work. Come on, Thunder Thighs, he's got to get ready. Tala spoke annoyed as she left the room with Giganta following with a whine of, but we were about to get freaky deaky. As Izuku rolled his eyes as he showered, knowing exactly what Tala was talking about. About a year ago, Kyoka one day had grabbed Izuku and slammed her lips against his. After that she proceeded to drag him to his room and neither were seen for the next few hours. After that she walked straight into the mess hall and proceeded to say, "Alright bitches, if you want him I'll share him, but always remember I'm top bitch." A second later he was tackled by a sea of females. Izuku couldn't help but smile as he thought about how he got here. Izuku himself had gone from a shy and meek boy to a calm and collected crime lord. Always wearing a smile on his face no matter what he did. Fighting, killing, stealing, eating, relaxing, meeting with people, no matter what, he always smiling and laughing. No one knows why he did it, not even him. It's because of this he's been given the name Joker. Izuku and his group had started off doing small stuff like running drugs and the like, while also training their quirks to become what they needed for the future. By that point they had already taken their first lives, which they were able to do with little issue. They were already desensitized to this. About a year after they started, a couple of weeks after they wiped out a gang take their base, actually people seeking them out. Sure, there were those who wanted to kill them and the occasional hero who wanted to arrest these new upstarts, but surprisingly there were others that wanted to join them. That sure shocked the hell out of them, full-grown men wanting to work for a group of what people knew were little kids, but after they proved who they were they still wanted to join. When asked by their new men what the group was called, the four looked at each other wondering what they should say. It was Izuku who gave the answer. We're the Yonko. At that day the Yonko were officially born. Thanks to their new hires the group was taken more seriously and were able to get into more beneficial business like gun smuggling and hit jobs. Izuku also adopted a white beard like mentally when it came to his crew and became protective and loyal to anyone under his banner. This loyalty was proven when some of the men in their gang got tired of taking orders from a bunch of kids and were going to take control by killing the four when they got back from a raid on other gangs. Of course the rest who were loyal and happy with how things were fought back, which unfortunately lead to deaths on both sides. That's when the four and the rest of the gang they took showed up. Izuku was shaking with rage as he saw some of his loyal men being killed by traitors. It was too much and Izuku did something he'd been trying to do for months. He unlocked his conquerors as Haki. Thanks to all the memories of Haki users he had, it had been easy for all four of them to awaken their Haki, and while he knew he may not have conquerors and it wasn't necessary, it would have been nice to have it. When Izuku did this everyone felt the wave and the weaker ones on both sides passed out instantly. Everyone else with the exception of Mezu, Kyoka and Fumikage, who had sweat running down their heads, fell to their knees as they looked toward the source. Despair and dread filled the eyes of the traitors as the loyal members looked in joy and hope as their boss went on to slaughter the traitors, not caring if they conscious or not. After that, Izuku thanked his men for their loyalty and assured them they will never be tossed away. This just cemented their loyalty, and soon word spread across the underground of the Joker and his loyalty to his men, as hundreds and soon thousands of criminals and thugs sought to be under his banner. Luckily, Izuku was able to a great deal of bases. From warehouses to abandoned military bases, plenty of room for everyone. At that point, Izuku felt it was to start putting his plan of world domination into effect, as the Yonko started to seriously start taking over territories from the three major crime bosses of Japan. Those three being Black Mask, Two-Face and the Penguin. Naturally, those three just laughed at the mere thought of a brat taking over their territories and were planning on getting rid of him. However, Izuku had discovered something about his quirk that was a game changer. Izuku was able to give people multiple devil fruit abilities. He could even give out the same power multiple times and still use it. After learning this, Izuku wasted no time in gathering his best and gave them devil fruit powers. The slaughter was one-sided to say the least, as the devil fruit users were able to easily overpower any quirk the three gangs had, and before long had the three working for the Yonko while also paying protection fees. After that, there wasn't much to tell. Izuku remained the mysterious and unseen Joker while his commanders took up names based on the multiple devil fruits they had. Last he cheeked, they each had quite a few devil fruits abilities. Mezzo became Arsenal, Fumikage became Shadow, Kyoka became Soul Queen. These three became monsters in their own right, and now all three were on a mission. The same mission, in fact. Infiltrate UA High. It was pretty easy to get them in. Some forged documents and bam! Right into the entrance exam. Still, it was time to start taking down the heroes, and what a better place to start than UA itself. Sure, they did a little hero hunting in the past, but those were small timers, no one impactful or relevant. Well, it's time for that to change, Izuku thought with a small grin as he stepped out of the shower. In a couple of days he was set to meet with the League of Villains. A group he has done business with before but have never met face to face. Of course, he had been invited to join the league, but he had no intention of working under anyone. Still, it was odd they wanted a face-to-face meeting. Must be something interesting. Still, that's a couple of days away, and it's time to focus at the task at hand as he finished getting dressed. Hey, not bad, Izuku smirked to himself before he left his room. Almost immediately after, he felt something hit his stomach with a cry of, "Daddy." Izuku smiled and looked down at who it was. "Morning, Eri. How are you this morning?" Izuku asked kindly to his adopted daughter. Around 2 years ago, Izuku had been heading back from a raid when they heard shouting coming from an apartment building before an enraged-looking woman literally threw a 3-year-old Eri out. Izuku was able to catch the girl just as the woman started ranting about a demon child who killed her husband and that she was a mistake. The woman was cut off by a bullet piercing her heart. The one who shot her was an enraged Izuku who watched coldly as the woman dropped dead. Izuku looked toward the young girl who had the same look on her face he did that faithful day, though he was surprised to see no anger directed at him. Knowing what she's going through, he bent down and asked her a simple question. "Would you like to come with me?" After that, the girl who later introduced herself as Eri came to live with him, and it quickly became known she was his daughter. And though it took a while, Eri fully came to see the Yonko crew as her family. And they also gained a solution to a big problem once they learned what her quirk was. Though Eri was creeped out at first, the nice lady who she worked helped her through it. The nice woman was even to teaching her. "I'm great, Daddy. Ms. Medusa said I could have the day off." Eri said, happy she had the day off. "I didn't say you could have the day off, I said we didn't have any work today that could change at a moment's notice, so be prepared." An amused and mature said as the two turned to the source. This is Medusa Gorgon, a doctor who was discharged and disgraced after she was caught experimenting and modifying patients. However, those skills were perfect for what Izuku wanted. A zombie army. It's something Izuku had wanted to do for years, however because they lacked a way to fix a corpse there was no reason to make any. So when they found Medusa operating in a back alley, it was a godsend. And by the time Izuku was done explaining and showing it was possible that's to the use of the shadow fruit and some of Medusa's patience, the woman was salivating at the thought. It was the beginning of a beautiful relationship. With Medusa's medical knowledge and the resources Izuku and the Yonko could provided, the dream of a zombie army came true, and once Eri, who could restore bodies to perfection, came into the picture, things just got better. Now Medusa could modify the bodies to her heart's content with different weapons, metals and animals, and with all the gangs, police, villains and heroes out there to either use their corpse or steal their shadows, there were countless possibilities. Of course they had to keep the ones that stole the shadows from prisoner. That's not even the best part. It was discovered that any zombie brought back can still use their quirks, and Izuku was even able to give them devil fruits, though each zombie can handle one. That's right, Izuku had an army of undead quirk devil fruit users. Izuku no uses these for a mercenary business. Izuku of course just used a clone to add the shadow and create the zombie, because who in their right mind would give someone else that much power? Izuku chuckled at Eri's pouting, and before anything else could be said, two new voices appeared. 9 a.m. and already making this much noise. We got people trying to sleep here, you know kid. A tired voice spoke. Don't be so cold, Dabi. Eri's love for her father is beautiful. The second voice scolded flamboyantly. Shut up, Magna. The now named Dabi groaned. Dabi and Magna, two of the more stand-out officers in his crew. Magna joined a few years ago and instantly fell in love with the camaraderie of the crew and wasted little time in getting to the officer position, which usually would have gotten her a devil fruit power and unlocked Haki, but she turned down the devil fruit after skimming through the records, stating she wasn't interested. She did have her Haki unlocked though, and now was a proficient user of armament and decent in observation. Dabi was another story entirely. Dabi actually joined when he was 14 and Izuku and the rest were 6, and he had risen through the ranks at an astronomical rate and was now one of the leading figures in the crew and extermination squad. He's also gifted with strong observation and armament Haki. Mix that together with his insane quirk and devil fruit and he's one of their best. So boss, you finally ready? Dabi asked as Izuku was told he could bring two of his to act as bodyguards in his meeting with Chisaki. Dabi was an obvious choice for one of them. Yeah, come on, Juicer will meet us at the entrance, Izuku said, referring to his second guard, before turning to Eri. Now you'll be a good girl for Magna, won't you, Eri? He asked, with the girl nodding in response. Oh, you won't have to worry about a thing, Izuku. Me and Eri always have fun together, Magna exclaimed, having taken an immense and immediate liking to the little girl, with said little girl nodding in agreement. Izuku laughed. Fair enough. Before turning to Dabi, let's go, no point in keeping the Yakuza waiting, Izuku said before walking off with Dabi following him, Magna and Eri going to hang out somewhere and Medusa to go check on her babies. So do you think there's any worth in taking these low-lifes under our banner, boss? Dabi asked, because unlike Penguin, Two-Face and Black Mask, these guys were small time and could prove nothing of real value. If they wish to join, then we should at least hear them out. At the very least we might get some powerful fighters added as well as extra cash due to protection fees. Izuku finished with Dabi nodding at the logic. Soon after passing many of the crewmates that were currently there, who either waved or saluted them, they arrived at the entrance of their current base, an abandoned mall that was condemned after a large battle that happened there. Well, you took your sweet time getting here, Izuku, Juicer said in an amused tone as they came into view. This is Juicer, otherwise known as Charlotte Smoothie, and Izuku was shocked to see her in this world with the same name, no less. It made him wonder if there are others like her here in this world and if he should seek them out, something that proved to be unnecessary as they seemed to flock to him in droves. Though it was clear that if they were the same people, they have no memories of the past. Also needless to say, but Smoothie soon found herself with the ring fruit. Did we keep you waiting long? I'm sorry, I'll make it up to you, Izuku said as Smoothie smirked before grabbing him with one hand and lifted him up before crashing her lips against his in a kiss before separating. You sure will, Izu? Smoothie said, causing Dabi to roll his eyes as Smoothie set the boss down. Alright, you two, we are expected, so let's not waste too much time. I know the location where we are supposed to meet them, so we can get there with the use of the door fruit. So any questions? Izuku asked, with the two shaking their hands. Seeing this, Izuku opened an air door to transport them to the meeting place. A few seconds later they arrived in and run down an abandoned area and came face to face with a lone figure. Izuku knew who this man was. Shin Nemoto, one of the 8 expendables. Izuku, wanting to make a good impression, spoke up. Good afternoon, I am Joker and these two behind me are Juicer and Dabi, executives in the Yonko, and we are here to discuss letting the 8 precepts of death under our flag. Izuku spiked calmly. Shin was silent for a moment until he spoke. We are aware that the name Yonko refer to the 4 top agents in the organization. The boss Joker and his 3 generals. We were under the impression you'd bring 2 of them with you. So where are they? He questioned while able to hide his surprise at how easily and honestly the Joker spoke to him. All 3 are on the same unrelated mission. I can fill you and your boss in, but no, they do agree in letting you. However, I could tell you no and him later, but that could just waste time. Izuku said, with Shin thinking about it for a minute before asking a couple of questions. Are your generals on a mission related to us? No. Were they in agreement to letting us join? 2 were, the last didn't care. Do you plan on to dispose of us should we ever lose our worth? No, I have no intention of disposing of any of you. However, should you join and ever betray me, my crew or my allies, I will personally kill you all. All honest and all came easily. He was genuine in his intention. Shin nodded as he turned. Follow me, he said simply as he walked toward an deserted-looking building as they did what they asked. The big one might have to duck, Shin said. Not necessary, Izuku said as he pressed his hand against the wall and created a door large enough for Smoothie easily get through. Well then, Izuku said as they entered the building, and Izuku closed the makeshift door. Shall we go? And they did just that. They walked for about half an hour through a seemingly endless maze. Well, ain't this suspicious as hell? Dobby commented offhandedly, almost as if they're going to try something. Not like I won't see it coming. Izuku spoke quietly, causing Dobby and Smoothie to smirk slightly. Izuku's trained his observation Haki until he was sure it could match Katakuri's level, so he'd never be caught off guard. We've arrived, Shin spoke suddenly as they arrived at a door. Let's see if we can get along, and with that he turned the handle and opened the door. Welcome, Joker, Overhaul said as the 3 entered the room after Shin entered and sat next to his boss. I am Overhaul, you've already met Shin, and this to my right is Mimic. He gestures to his men who nodded when introduced. Izuku, seeing, introduced his own crew. Greetings, I am Joker and these behind me are Dobby and Juicer. He introduced the 2 who just waved and nodded respectively. Now that introductions are done, let's get down to business, shall we? Overhaul nodded, a man straight to the point. I like that. Now how would we benefit from going under your banner and what would we have to pay for it? Overhaul asking the main questions that needed to be addressed. Protection for one, whether it be from heroes, cops or anyone else should you ever need. Next, you'd get 40% off all black market items we sell. Also, our spy network is quite vast and will be at your call should you need it. Finally, you have full use of any and all facilities under our control. And the payment, Chisaki readied himself for this. Joker was offering a lot, so his demands were going to be high. Izuku grinned as he raised 5 fingers. 1. You shall pay a monthly fee of 50 million yen to us. 2.5% of any profit you make goes to us. 3. Any information you receive, even if it's the sketchiest rumor, is it to be reported to us immediately. 4. You shall only buy black market items from us. Should we find you bought off someone else, our contract will be rendered void. And the 5th, Chisaki asked nervously. These demands were high and people always save the worst for last. Izuku grinned as he laced his fingers together. The 5th is, should we ever encounter a job we need your assistance in occurs, you and your organization will give us your full support. Basically, if we tell you to go fight somewhere, you go, no questions asked. Dobby summarized for the slower members of the Yakuza, which in his mind were all 3 of them. Chisaki looked down. That wasn't as bad as he thought it would be. He nodded, accepting the terms. We have a deal, Chisaki said, extending his hand. He may be a germaphobe, but he could do that much. Izuku nodded, taking the hand and shaking it. Good to hear. Welcome to the Yonko overhaul. Izuku then stepped back as Smoothie and Dobby stood up. Well, no point in staying around here, we'll see ourselves out. And before any of the Yakuza could ask, Izuku activated the air door that Smoothie and Dobby immediately entered. Izuku turned toward the 3 inches. Thanks for having us. We'll be in touch. Izuku grinned and then entered before closing the door behind him. It was silent for a moment before Shin spoke. Well, I think that well. He spoke knowing exactly what was about to come. Went well. Those brats disrespected us. We should have killed, then showed them their place. Mimic roared, ready to kill those bastards, not caring who they were. Just as Shin was about to try and calm him down, Chisaki spoke. Mimic, calm down. We were the ones to call them and ask if we could become their subordinates. True that Dobby fellow was quite rude, but Joker was pure business, something I can respect, so for now we'll do what they say until we've gotten what we wanted. And when we've gotten what we want? Shin asked, dreading the answer. We get rid of the Yonko and take over so the Yakuza could rule like they should. Overhaul said with a crazy glint in his eye. Who care if it was the Joker and the Yonko, they would rule, and the best part is they had no idea of the betrayal that was coming. Back with Izuku's group. So how long do you think it'll be before they try to betray us? Dobby asked almost instantly after they stepped out of the air door and closed it. Hopefully it'll be a few months so we can get some use out of them. Smoothie said thoughtfully. If only they had fully joined our crew or at least allied themselves with us, but they claimed that would bring them too much attention. What a shame. Izuku spoke, still with a smile on his face. We should have just killed them and be done with it. The doc could have just made them into zombies. Dobby said. True, but you know how much I like a complete set. Izuku spoke as his grin turned impish. Dobby just huffed as he muttered, would have been a good start. Before anything else could be said, Joker's cell phone rang. Wonder which one your girlfriend's that is? Dobby asked, only to slapped by Smoothie as Izuku answered. Hello. Joker here. Joker. It's me. Izuku's eyes widened in genuine surprise. Calculator. What a surprise. And it genuinely was. Calculator was in charge of the Yonko's communication network and spy network. He was usually so busy no one ever heard from him. If he's calling Izuku personally, then this must be important. Alright Calculator, what's up? Something big must be going on if you're the one calling me. Izuku asked, turning serious while also putting it on speaker so Smoothie and Dobby could hear. The League of Villains were able to get in contact with one of my contacts and informed me that they want a meeting, today if possible. Why the last minute change? We had a meeting set up for next week. Something must have happened if they're pushing it this far up. It's no big deal really. We can just ask them when we get there. Dobby asked, annoyed he has to sit through another meeting today. Actually, when they learned the three generals were unable to join the meeting, they requested only for Joker to meet them. Calculator informed them. Before Smoothie or Dobby could protest, Izuku spoke up. Calculator, send me the location they gave you. I'll air door to a location close to there after I drop off Dobby and Smoothie at our current base. Izuku finished, ignoring their surprised looks. Right, I'll do that, Calculator said. Oh yeah, I almost forgot, this morning I got a call from Rakshata. She said her children are about to be ready. Calculator spoke, causing their eyes to widen. Rakshata Chala was their head of research and development. She's responsible for making some of their most powerful weapons while also modifying standard weapons to be tools of mass destruction. However, for the last 3 years she's been working on a project Izuku gave her, to the point of it's all she could think about, but if she says she close, that they're that close to being done. Did she give you an estimate? Izuku asked, wondering if there was an estimate. 2 months top. Calculator said simply, causing shocking Izuku for a second before he let out a little laugh. Thank you Calculator, keep me informed if anything comes up. Izuku requested, earning a right from Calculator before he hung up. Izuku could only laugh slightly. Well, this day just keeps getting better and better. Izuku then turned to the other two. So ready to head back? He asked. Dobby was the first to recover. So you sure you're fine with going alone, boss? Dobby questioned, though he knew damn well the boss was almost invincible, but there was always a chance. Izuku chuckled at the concern before waving it off. Of course my friend, this is just another meeting. Now we have a schedule to keep. Best not to keep the league waiting, Izuku said as he opened another door before the three entered. A couple of minutes later, Izuku had appeared in an empty alleyway after dropping Smoothie and Dobby off at a base. Izuku always made sure he was 20 minutes away from any meeting place so he could make sure he wasn't followed if he was able. The only reasons he didn't do that with Overhaul is because he wasn't as knowledgeable of the area as he would have liked, and Overhaul was known to be even more paranoid than Izuku, so Chisaki would have made damn sure no one was around. Izuku exited the alley and started making his way to the location he was given, flaring his observation Haki full blast so no one can sneak up on him. Thanks to his insane Haki level plus the use of the Rumble fruit, the range and quality absolutely monstrous. As Izuku was walking, a certain news report played on one of the many TVs he passed caught his attention. In other news, thanks to the combined forces of All Might, Best Jeanist and Edgeshot, over 100 members of the Top Dog gang were arrested and are awaiting transport to Arkham City. Unfortunately, the heroes were unable to capture Top Dog himself, but assured police they would soon capture him. Arkham City. Izuku thought as the news went to another story. One of Japan's 4 supreme prisons. Izuku recalled as his Haki picked up a strong presence walking besides him, but it didn't seem hostile, so he ignored it and focused on his previous thought. Japan has 4 supreme prisons: Tartarus, Arkham City, the Raft and the Vault. Each one designed to hold a certain kind of criminal. Tartarus. The prison people are sent when deaths to light a sentence. Inmates are strapped into gurneys and hawked into machines that will keep them alive and have their brains monitored, and if the slightest bit of a quirk is detected, they're blasted with bullet fire. Arkham City. Built from a part of the Tokyo and used to contain psychos and vicious gang members. Inmates are given free rein with little supervision as they fight and slaughter each other for territory, food and in some cases fun. The Vault. Built from the hollowed-out Japanese's Alps. This prison holds criminals with monstrous mutations and gigantification quirks. This prison is lined with practically indestructible and self-repairing walls. Prisoners wear quirk nullification collars that inject poison that paralyzes and renders the inmate unconscious. This prison is staffed with robot caretakers to look after the inmates, and should there ever be a breakout, robot in the control room will simply press a button and bury everyone under a literal mountain of rocks. The Raft. Here lies the most dangerous death row and life sentence inmates who could only sit and wait, with every room is laced with quirk-canceling tech. Like the Vault, the staff are simple caretaker bots, and if there's a breakout, a single push of a button and everyone drowns. 4 prisons, said to be completely impenetrable. Yet no one's had the balls to send one of my crew to any one of them. Izuku thought with an inner chuckle. It was well known that whenever one of the Joker's crew was captured, no matter who it was, even if they were bottom-tier thugs, within 3 days they were always free. There were many ways to get this done. Bribery, blackmail, death threats, infiltration, explosives, the list goes on, but the result is the same. And to think a few simple tricks is enough to scare them from holding them in the inescapable facilities. Can't say it's a dumb move though. Izuku smirked to himself before he noticed something strange. It had been 10 minutes since he started walking, and the same person who he detected was still besides him. Curiosity getting the best of him, he turned and saw who has been walking with him. A student, huh? Izuku thought. He wasn't curious, just surprised. No one really knew what Joker looked like, so Izuku was sure this guy didn't know who he was. The reason he was curious was UA was a good 2 hours away from here by bullet train at least. So he decided to get some answers. Hi there, Izuku said as he turned to the UA student, whose head snapped to him as soon as the words were uttered. Hey, beautiful day, isn't it? The man exclaimed with so much enthusiasm he was leaking it. Yes, it is. Well, I'm Izuku Midoriya, and I have to ask, why are you following me? Judging from your uniform, you're a UA student. Little far from the school? Izuku questioned, wanting to get to the heart of the matter. The UA student had the decency to look sheepish. Heh, sorry about that. I'm Mirio Tagata, and I'm actually a part of a work-study to an hero agency around here, and the reason I'm following you is, well, you looked kinda lonely. Mirio finished while also scratching his check. Besides, what are you doing here? You should be in school too, you know. Mirio questioned. Izuku inwardly smirked. He was expecting this question. Luckily for Izuku, he knew this area very well. I'm actually just here to grab some lunch. That place up there has amazing and cheap crab fried rice. Izuku answered, and he was being truthful. The place he pointed to had amazing rice dishes. Really? Awesome. Mind if I join you? Sir isn't expecting me for another half hour. Mirio asked. Izuku looked at his watch to see if he had time for this, and to his surprise he had nearly 45 minutes. Izuku could have sworn he spent more time dealing with overhaul, but he did have some time to kill. Sure, why not? Izuku said, let's grab some food, and they did just that. Soon both were seated and had ordered. So Izuku, ever thought about becoming a hero? Mirio asked bluntly, causing Izuku to look at him weirdly, causing Mirio to hurriedly apologize, only for Izuku to laugh. Don't worry about Mirio, but to answer your question, no, I've never wanted to become a hero. Izuku lied, having to act as if heroes did not interest him. Which is a bummer since I have a quirk that would make for a decent hero. Izuku said offhandedly. Oh, and what would that be? Mirio asked, interested. Izuku merely raised his hand as many ghosts with simple faces appeared. My quirk allows me to summon these little ghosts that when they go through people, causing them to fall into a deep depression for a short amount of time. Oh, I can also make them explode. Izuku explained while leaving out some of its other abilities out. Wow, that would have made an amazing hero quirk. Mirio said. But don't worry, Lemillion will make sure to pick up the slack. Mirio exclaimed with a wide smirk and a thumbs up. Well, someone's motivated. Izuku thought dryly, only to question something. Wait, Lemillion? Izuku questioned with Mirio nodding. Yup, that's me, Lemillion, the hero who aims to save 1,000,000 people. Mirio exclaimed with passion. Only 1,000,000? Seems a little low, don't you think? Aren't heroes supposed to save as many people as possible? If that's the case, why not go with Lemani? Izuku questioned with Mirio laughing and saying he'd keep it in mind. Soon their food came and ate mostly in silence, with only making small comments here and there. Afterwards they paid for their food and went their separate ways, not knowing what the future had in store for them. Izuku arrived at the meeting place about 10 minutes later. Izuku proceeded to knock on the door and getting the go-ahead entered, though he was a little surprised by the occupants. There were two of them. One of them was a blue-haired man who looked he was in his early 20s with red eyes and wrinkles on his face. He was wearing blackish blue shirt and pants and red shoes. Though the odd thing was that he was covered in hands. The other was what could only be described as purple mist in a suit, because that's what he was. Izuku knew there was a body there because of the clothes and the neck brace. The two seemed surprised and Izuku couldn't blame them. Everyone was surprised when they found out that the infamous Joker was a kid. Well, best get this over with. Hello, I am Joker and I was told by a friend of mine I was to meet the League of Villains leader here, one Tamura Shigaraki. Izuku said with the man covered in hands slowly nodding. Yes, I'm Tamura Shigaraki, acting leader of the League of Villains, and this is Kurogiri. Tamura motioned to the purple mist, who bowed his head slightly. Acting leader, huh? So he's not the boss? Izuku thought as he returned the gesture, as his eyes snapped to the TV that was on audio-only mode for a split second, turning back to Tamura. Now then, on to business. We were already scheduled to meet in a few days' time. Why the sudden change? Izuku asked with Shigaraki chuckling darkly. Oh, I just thought the infamous Joker would be interesting in taking part in a rather interesting job, the acting leader said with menacing glee. Izuku raised an eyebrow and asked. Oh, and what would that job be? The grin grew. Why, killing All Might, of course, he said with Izuku widening his eyes slightly. That's pretty ambitious. I take it you have an ace in the hole for this? Izuku questioned with Tamura nodding rapidly before moving his hand. Nomu, come out here and meet our guest. A second later, a large bird-like creature came from the back room and stared dead-eyed at Izuku, who just stared. We've been able to give him multiple quirks. Super strength, super speed, shock absorption and regeneration. With these he has become the anti-symbol of peace. Shigaraki exclaimed, bragging about Nomu like a child would a toy. Izuku meanwhile seriously doubted this would work, but it would be interesting to say the least. Sure, why not, sounds interesting. But I'll be joining you myself and no one else, understand? This shocked both villains, as when they posed the deal they were hoping to get the Joker to send of his crew but never expected to get the man himself. Tamura was shaking with glee. He was told by his sensei that under no circumstances were he to try and recruit the Joker into the League in the first place, but here he was volunteering to go himself. But he was interested in one thing. Can't you bring your generals with us, the rest of the Yonko? If they came with us, there's no way we'd lose? Shigaraki asked with Kurogiri snapping his head toward the man as if demanding why he would request that when they were already getting the Joker, before quickly apologizing to Izuku for the rudeness, only for Izuku to wave it off. It's fine, Kurogiri, I was expecting the question, he assured the mist villain before facing Tamura. The other three are all on a different mission and sadly won't be able to join us. Now all that's left is to tell me the when and where, and I'll be on my way, Izuku answered. It'll be in 3 days. Come here and Kurogiri will transport us and everyone we've managed to recruit. Izuku nodded. And the place? The crime boss asked. The USJ on the UA grounds. We're going to be attacking when it's occupied by the most recent Class 1A. Tamura finished happily. Izuku started shaking trying to hold it in, but he just couldn't, and soon he started to laugh. And that's how he left to prepare, leaving behind 2 scared to hell villains and 1 amused, all for one. 3 days later. So is everything ready? Izuku asked, having made sure the knives and guns he had were ready while donning his current villain suit and mask. Tamura nodded before facing Kurogiri. Open up the gate. It's time to get rid of the symbol of peace once and for all. Kurogiri did as he was asked, and Izuku followed after Tamura, Nomu and Kurogiri. All the while smiling a mad grin under his mask. This was gonna be fun. A few days before USJUA High, the greatest hero high school in Japan and the place that was the start for many legendary pro heroes. If one wants to be a pro, this is the place to go. God, this is gonna suck. One Kyoka Jiru complained as she walked with Mezo Shoji and Fumikage Tokiyami down the hall to Class 1A to begin their mission. The 3 generals of the Yonko have definitely grown in their own ways over the years, and it shows in how they act and the devil fruit powers they possess. Mezo has dedicated himself to become the perfect sword and shield for his crew. Having taken inspiration from some of what he considered the greatest men from what Izuku was able to show him of the memories he had, Mezo was given their devil fruits and became the crew's vanguard leader under the code name Arsenal, always leading the first strike against the enemy. Mezo especially admired a man named Charlotte Katakuri. Though it started because they had similar facial scars, it grew as Mezo learned of the loyalty and dedication Katakuri showed his family, and like Katakuri, Mezo kept his scars hidden till he could reveal himself to the world. Fumikage, who over the years grew more disgusted by how more heroes wanted nothing more than to get famous and show off their quirks, chose to live in the shadows. Taking up the moniker of Shadow, Fumikage now leads the raiders and assassination squads, so when the crew needs someone to disappear or something acquired through less than legal means, they were the ones to go to. Fumikage was in fact the General Dabi, and the extermination answered directly to. Naturally, most of the fruits Fumikage have are based on striking from the shadows and killing from a distance. However, he did have some that were purely destruction based or helps Dark Shadow overcome its weakness. Kyoka Jiru was easily the most sadistic of the Yonko, often torturing prisoners and killing when it's not needed. However, one thing that has increased over the years is her love to control others and use them as her playthings. Her favorite hobby is breaking people's will until they're nothing but hollow shells of their former selves, and then using these dolls as mindless slaves until they break or she kills them when she finds a new one, as she has 2 rules when it came to her dolls. The first is to only have female dolls, as Izuku is the only man for her. The second is to only have 1 at a time so she can give them her personal attention. She is the head of torture and investigation and is the specialist of manipulation types of devil fruit, known only as the Soul Queen. It came as a surprise to them when Izuku told them the 3 of them would be infiltrating UA. Though it did make sense. If they were to take over the planet, then the heroes of the world would have to be disposed of, and making the premier hero school look like a joke would be a good start. We know how you feel, Kyoka, but please try and keep your voice down. Normal hero course students are thrilled and honored to be here. Mezo said, trying to get her to stop drawing more weird looks from fellow students. Indeed, it would not do for us to attract unwanted attention, especially with so many pro heroes around. Fumikage spoke. Now it's not like they couldn't beat the pros that were there, quite the opposite in fact. With all their devil fruits, their quirks, Haki, fighting styles, fighting experience and other skills, they have the 3 could level UA to the ground and kill anyone who got in their way. All might included if rumors are to be believed. Oh, come on, you know what it's gonna be like. Kyoka spat. A bunch of starry-eyed brats with delusions of grandeur and becoming the next All Might. The Soul Queen spoke in disgust. Mezo and Fumikage could only nod in agreement to this. We know, but please try and act like you want to be here. Fumikage asked as they reached the classroom for Class 1A and opened the door. Fine, but it's not like I'm going to find thing enter. Kyoka trailed off while getting a familiar look in her eyes as Fumikage and Mezo looked to where the female general was staring. So that's it. She wants a new doll. Fumikage spoke dryly. He knew this might happen, he just wished it didn't happen so quickly. Well, her last one did give out a few days ago, so it's only natural she'd be looking for a new one. Mezo said thoughtfully as the last one made longer than most, and she was just a little older than this new girl. If Mezo remembered correctly, her name was Najire Hato. She'll make a good zombie now at least. As for Kyoka, she only had one thought: start at the 10-second mark. Kyoka took a single step before she felt a hand on her shoulder. Annoyed, she turned and faced Fumikage. Do what you want, but if you endanger the mission I will step in, the avian-headed criminal warned. Juru just rolled her eyes. What do you take me for, Fumi? A damn amateur? I wouldn't fuck up. Besides, look at her. Juru smirked as she faced the girl. I can tell by the look on her face. It screams naive, innocent and insecure. My favorite kind of doll. Kyoka was practically drooling by the end before getting herself together and walking over. Hey there. My name is Kyoka Juru and I figured I would come over and introduce myself. Kyoka spoke while extending her hand, getting the ponytail girl's attention. The girl's eyes seemed to light up as she took Kyoka's hand and shook it vigorously. Hello. I'm Momo Yaoyorozu and it's a pleasure to meet you. The now named Momo spoke, happy with Juru's grin widening. She was a Yaoyorozu, that just meant she'll get a fortune out of it too, and unlike on missions she won't even need to share it. Not like she'd need to. Each of the Yonko had millions of yen each. Through one way or another. It's nice to meet you too, though it's strange I didn't see you at the entrance exam. Kyoka questioned, with Momo looking a bit flustered. Actually, I was admitted through recommendation, I didn't have to take the exam. Momo said in a voice that was a mix of embarrassment and insecurity. Kyoka grinned, she found her starting point. Recommendation? That's amazing, you must be really skilled to get in that way. Kyoka praised and Momo beamed at the praise, never seeing Kyoka's smirk. Yeah, and I wouldn't worry about what anyone would say about you cheating your way in. Kyoka said offhandedly before seeing Momo's shocked and confused look as she muttered a, cheated, before looking at Kyoka for an answer, while said girl had to fight back laughter at how easy this was. Maintaining a straight face, Kyoka explained. Well yeah, I mean with your family name people could assume you or your family bought your way in. But I wouldn't worry about it. Those come from losers who weren't good enough. I'm sure you won't let yourself or your family down. Well, I better head to my seat. Talk to you later, Momo. Kyoka spoke as she left for her seat before Momo could ask anything else. Kyoka took a discreet look back and saw the fruits of her labor already begin as she saw Momo already start to doubt herself. This was her favorite method of breaking her dolls. Make it so they doubt everything about themselves and that everyone is turning against them in disgust, so she'll seem like the only person who cares about them. Works every time. Not much happened after that as Mezzo and Fumikage both socialized with the kids in their class and started gathering information on them. Through it all they all kept their observation Haki going full blast, and they were disappointed to say the least. There was pretty much no one in this school that was stronger than a lieutenant in their crew. There were many parts and divisions of their crew, but in the main fighting force there was 7 ranks from highest to lowest it went. The boss, the generals, the executives, the commanders. The captains, the lieutenants, the foot soldiers. These were the main 7 that all fighters fit into. All division leaders like Dabi and Smoothie were given the rank of executive, while standout fighters like Magna and Giganta were given captain ranks and allowed devil fruits in Haki. In fact, once you make it to captain you were required to learn Haki. Anyway, the whole school average level was lower than a foot soldier, with most of the remaining ones were at foot soldier level and a few of them at lieutenant. There was however one high captain level, and that was clearly All Might. Though what confused them was he was slowly but surely weakened. It was like rock being chipped away, but it was there. Their class did have a few surprises though, as there was a couple of low-tier lieutenants in it. One was a boy with a scar on his face and half white and half red hair. He had an aura of darkness and rage around him. The other was a boy with red eyes and ashen blonde hair. The aura around him just screamed arrogance. The trio knew who the second boy is though, as their boss had showed them multiple pictures of them that had in his castle ability. This was Katsuki Bakugo. Right now he was arguing with another student who later identified himself as Tenya Iida before ranting about desks or something stupid like that. While this was going there, Haki picked up a high lieutenant level presence approach the door. A second later they found out who it was as Shota Aizawa, also known as Eraserhead, entered the room and introduced himself as their homeroom teacher. The 3 generals knew this man very well, as he, like every other hero, have been hunting them and their crew down for years, only to be frustrated when they inevitably broke out and were back to square one. Aizawa told them to get into their gym uniforms and meet him on the training field, with the class quick to obey, not wanting to get in trouble, and see what their teacher wanted. Turns out their teacher wanted was to test their quirks and how they used them. After having Bakugo preform the ball through, a couple of the more carefree students were excited to use their quirks in such a fun way. That's when Aizawa dropped a bomb. The student in last place would be expelled immediately, causing most of the class to freak out and whine about it being unfair. At that, Aizawa told them to suck it up or get out. That's how it went down, with the class showing off their quirks in a desperate attempt to stay, except for the three generals, who even with minimal effort was able to dominate, with Mezzo and Fumikage taking first and second place respectively and Kyoka taking sixth place. The one who came in last was a purple bald-haired kid named Mineta, who started to cry until Aizawa said he was lying and no one would be expelled. Something the three generals were extremely doubtful of that. Kyoka did notice Momo saying it was obvious and apologized for not saying anything. Kyoka made a note to ask a teacher about that when Momo was in earshot. After that, nothing really happened. Aizawa told them to review the syllabus and go home. That night, the three were in one of their safe houses when they revived an email from Izuku. The League of Villains will be attacking the USJ in 2 days when your class is there. Their goal is to kill All Might. I will be attending, so bring a fly spy drone so we can give the world a show. The three looked at each other surprised. They knew they would have to get rid of All Might eventually, but they didn't expect it to be this soon. Oh well, it didn't really matter. All Might was severely weaker than he should be, to the point where any one of them could swat him like a fly as he was now. Not that they couldn't beat him solo if he was stronger, it just would have been a hell of a lot harder. Killing All Might not the worst way to start taking over. Mezzo spoke, his mouth on full display now that he was alone with his crew. Indeed. Fumikage nodded. Taking out one of their central pillars is a perfect start to our conquest. Just wish I had a shot at the bastard. Dark Shadow threw its 2 cents in. Oh, this is going to be good. Kyoka cackled as she couldn't wait to see it. The next day. The first part of the day was dull, not just for the villains but also the rest of the students in the hero course, as they turned out to be regular lessons. After lunch, it was time to get to the heroic aspects of lessons, with the first class being Harrowing 101, taught by none other than All Might himself. His first lesson was combat practice, as pairs of 2 would go against each other as heroes and villains. Now we don't need to go through every match, just the ones that matter. Mezzo was but on the side of villains, something he was happy with. However, the match was over before it even begun, as his opponents were frozen where they stood by his partner, who was none other than one of 2 students of any real value, Shoto Todoroki. The same Shoto that Endeavor was taking about. Mezzo thought to himself, as even though he hated the flame hero, there was no reason to hate a child just because of who their parents are. Though at the moment Mezzo was annoyed that he didn't get to do anything. Next was Fumikage, who was paired with a frog girl named Tsuyu Asui, as they were placed on the hero team going up against Hantashiro and Eijiro Kirishima. It was a pretty simple battle. Fumikage was able to get past their amateurish traps like they were nothing, while Tsuyu retrieved the bomb. Kyoka was paired up with Denki Kaminari as the heroes, and to Kyoka's joy they were going up against Momo and Mineta. Kyoka wasted only a single second plugging her ear jack into the wall to pretend to search for them, having never lost them thanks to her Haki. After that, the Soul Queen ran toward their location while Denki tried desperately and failing to keep up. Kyoka kicked down the door and using her jacks and Haki to avoid the traps Momo set up, plugged into her opponents before using her heartbeat to knock them out before using her jack to grab the bomb. Needless to say, Kyoka was questioned for her actions, but her response was hard to dispute. All Might told us to act like this was real. Just because none of you want to take this seriously doesn't mean I can't. Not even All Might could argue, as those were his instructions. After that, Kyoka went over to apologize to Momo for going too far and that she'll go easy next time. Then Kyoka left, leaving Momo's doubts to grow. Things went smoothly after that, as the 3 Yonko generals took notice of the other students' quirks and how much trouble they could cause in the future. That night, 3 were preparing for the USJ tomorrow while also preparing the fly spy drone to record what was coming. The next day, Aizawa dropped a surprise on most of the class as they needed a class president, something Mezzo, Kyoka and Fumikage found completely unnecessary. In the end, Momo was selected as president and Itsuka Kendo was vice president, and judging from the brief doubtful looks that would appear on her face every so often and the slight fidget she had, Kyoka's poisonous words were already having an effect. School was pretty normal after that until lunch, when apparently there were intruders in the campus. This caused a panic and could have gotten really bad if not for Tenya Iida, who assured everyone it was just the press, calming everyone down. Kyoka didn't even have to say anything to Momo after that and could just sit back and watch as Momo berated herself for doing nothing right after being selected as class representative. Then it was finally time to head to the USJ, and all three of them, where luckily they've had years to develop their poker faces, or they might not be able to keep the grins of anticipation of their faces as they boarded and left on the bus. Though they did gain genuine frowns when they learned it was just going to be Eraserhead and 13 the space hero. Oh well, it won't be the same as All Might, but having those two die will still be a hit to the Hero Society. It happened right after they entered the USJ. A large purple mist appeared, confusing the other students as villains appeared. Though they were all weaker than even their foot soldiers, so it wasn't much. Finally Izuku appeared wearing his current villain outfit and mask. And as he looked up he gave them a discreet signal disguised as cracking his knuckles. Kyoka grinned as she discreetly took the fly spy drone out of her jacket pocket and activated it. The four Yonko watched as the tiny drone flew up to the ceiling and sat there recording everything that was about to happen. They grinned. It was time to start the show. So this is UA High, Izuku thought to himself as he looked around the USJ before looking over to where the students and teachers are. His generals flawlessly blending in with looks of fear on their faces as Kyoka activated the spy drone. However, Izuku noticed one thing that was essential to killing All Might was missing. All Might. Well, this might be a problem, as Kurogiri and Shigaraki noticed the number one hero's absence. Perplexing. The information we had said All Might would be here. Yet the only pro heroes I see are Eraserhead and 13. Kurogiri said, analyzing the situation. To think we brought all these friends just to meet the symbol of peace and he's not even here. Maybe we should kill a few kids and see if that brings him running. The decay quirk user suggested, causing Joker to laugh slightly. Eraserhead meanwhile was trying not to panic. What should have been simple rescue training has spiraled out of control. Villains have somehow invaded the USJ, and if they're here in the plaza they could be all over the facility or maybe even the campus. Now, judging by the looks of them, most were gutter trash, so even if there were more of them the UA staff should easily be able to handle it. However, there were some serious problems with the four in the back. The first three were bad enough, with one of them likely being the one who warped the villains here, the second looking like he could rival All Might in terms of strength and who knew what the freak with the hands could do. However, it was the last guy that was truly causing him to panic. 6 feet tall, purple and green suit and a clown mask. Yes, Eraserhead knew this man very well. The Joker. One of the most wanted criminals in Japan and undisputed king of the criminal underworld, Joker was in control of everything from drug trafficking to weapon smuggling and everything in between. Known to be ruthless to anyone who goes against him. Eraserhead and every other underground hero have been after the psychopath for years, but most gave up after several heroes were found in their homes cut to pieces, boiled alive, and other torturous deaths with a Joker card next to them. 13. Get the students out of here and contact the staff immediately. Aizawa shouted to the space hero while putting on his goggles. Oh come on, we can easily take this trash out, especially that freak in the clown mask. Bakugo yelled, ready to blow these losers to hell. No, stay back, Aizawa shouted, not needing any more trouble from his most prideful student. Get the hell out of here now. Aizawa screamed at his students, who as well as 13 were taken back by the panicked desperation in the man's voice. Aizawa, what's going on? Yes, there are villains, but there's no reason to panic. 13 spoke, trying to calm down the usual cynical man he was. 13, the one in the mask is the Joker. Aizawa spoke in a desperately calm voice, knowing that will alert 13 to the danger. Even though they were a rescue hero, 13 as well as every other hero has heard of the Joker, and that's why they lead the students away as Aizawa jumped into the fray. Only for many of the students, Kyoka and Fumikage included, to be warped away by Kurogiri. Not that Izuku was worried between their quirks, multiple devil fruits, Haki and everything else. All three could annihilate both sides each on their own. He's not bad though, Izuku thought as he watched Eraserhead crush the fodder they had brought with them before walking toward the hero. He should make a good warm-up at least. Izuku spoke, getting the hero's attention as Eraserhead used his quirk to erase Izuku's quirk. Izuku, having prepared for this, was ready to fight without his quirk. Therefore it came as a genuine shock when Izuku felt just his zone fruits disappear, not in his Paramesha and Logia. Having decided to keep this to himself for the time being, Izuku met Aizawa and aimed a punch towards the side of the hero's head, causing him to shield himself with his arms in an attempt to block it. The impact of the blow forcing the teacher to skid back and close his eyes, causing his zone abilities to return. Wasting no time, Izuku used fire gun to fire multiple fire bullets at Aizawa. Aizawa, while managing to dodge some of the shots, was still hit by many of them across his body, causing it to be covered in burns. His scarf was also hit, causing it to burst into flames, shocking the hero since his scarf is supposed to be fireproof. While Aizawa was getting rid of the scarf, Izuku rushed toward the hero while also covering his hand in lightning. This was the lightning blade. Though just a few feet from Aizawa, the lighting disappeared as well as the rest of his Logia abilities. So it gets rid of a different set each time, huh? Well, let's try this, Izuku thought as he slashed his hand down as 5 colorful strings slashed Aizawa across the stomach. Aizawa fell to his knees as he coughed up blood as Izuku grabbed the back of the hero's head and slammed it into the ground, forcing his goggles to break off him as the villain held his arms behind his back. Now, if you'll be so kind and answer my question. Where is All Might? Izuku asked politely. Go to hell, was the reply he received. Izuku smiled. Your right arm is next. Snap. Aizawa could only grit his teeth at the pain. Now that's strike 1. Strike 2 earns you a broken right arm. You don't want to know what a third earns you. So please just tell us where the symbol of peace is. Go to hell, Aizawa repeated. Strike 2 inches. Snap. This was going on. Kurogiri has returned to Tamura's side to inform him that one of the students had escaped. Naturally, this caused the Decayer to throw a tantrum until Kurogiri calmed him down. It was at that point Tamura pointed something out. So the rumors are true. Joker has multiple quirks like the Master. Tamura said, which caused Kurogiri to shake his head. Remember, Tamura, the Master believes all the power the Joker has all comes from a single quirk, as incredible as it sounds. Tamura nodded, having forgotten that. So what do you want to do? All Might isn't here and there's no reason to play this level. Should we just grab Joker and go home? Let Joker finish with Eraserhead. If nothing else, he could cripple a prominent hero for us. Shigaraki nodded. Back with Izuku, the criminal was grinning under his mask. He had just picked up a massive power rushing towards the USJ. All Might. Izuku thought, excited about the concept of fighting and killing the symbol of peace. But first let's get him that third strike, Izuku thought as he took out his knife and held it close to his face. His eye to be, in fact. So one last time, where is All Might? Eraserhead looked him straight in the eye and gave the one response that he knew would cause no one but him to get hurt. Go to hell, Izuku merely sighed. Strike 3. The remainder are Class 1A could only watch in horror as the lunatic stabbed his knife into Eraserhead's eye, and the screams that came from said teacher would haunt them forever. Mezzo meanwhile was keeping tabs on Kyoka and Fumikage using one of his devil fruits. The Bloom fruit. One of the ones all 3 generals have because of its versatility. Fumikage was in the downpour zone with Koji Kota using Kota as bait, while Fumikage was the one to take the villains out. Kyoka meanwhile was brutally beating down any villains in the mountain zone, freaking out not only the villains but also Momo and Kaminari. Eventually Momo created a blanket of insulation covering the 2 girls, letting Denki fry the villains. Though they did detect another villain who was stronger than most of the trash here, it was still nothing. However, all 4 did sense the powerful presence finally arrive at the USJ, indicated by the door being blown in and All Might arrived. And as those at the entrance cheered for the number 1 hero. The Yonko grinned as they knew the spy drone was still recording and what they were about to show the world. And then the door was busted down. All Might wasn't smiling. That alone should show how wrong the situation was, but he couldn't help it. His students were fighting for their lives while he was resting for overdoing it on his way to the school this morning. It was only made worse when he caught sight of 13 and Aizawa. All Might wasted no time as he practically flew towards Aizawa and the masked villain, knocking out any villains that got in his way. Though he was surprised when the villain threw Aizawa towards him, All Might was still able to catch him. He was even worse up close. Burns all over his body, his stomach covered in 5 large slash marks, both arms broken and his right eye having been stabbed out. Who the hell is this monster? All Might thought while looking towards Izuku. Be careful, All Might. That's the Joker. and it appears the rumors are true. He can use multiple quirks. Eraserhead managed to say, causing All Might to grit his teeth. The Joker would have been a hard fight if he wasn't tired, but now he's already used his time limit for the day and Joker has multiple quirks like the rumors believed. This was really bad, especially if he was connected to All for One like All Might first thought when he heard the rumors. Izuku meanwhile was smirking in anticipation. So are we going to do this, or? Izuku was cut off as All Might tried to punch him in the stomach only to be met with smoke as his hand went right through it, shocking All Might. Didn't need Haki to see that coming, Izuku thought, amused as he went for a punch to the face. The punch connected, sending All Might a few feet back from the impact as Izuku shook his stinging hand. Man, you really are durable. All Might ignored him and went for a punch to the face only to strike sand this time. All Might thought, confused as to what was happening. So it seems normal attacks won't work on you. Well, let's see how you handle this. Izuku spoke as he used the dice fruit to turn the insides of his hands into blades before casting them in Haki. After that he put his hands together and lunged, hitting All Might in the stomach as the combination of the attack and Haki sent the blast onwards, cutting a good deal of the area behind All Might to shreds. All Might coughed up blood as his chest was cut to ribbons and pain exploded from it. It was then that Izuku noticed something. Part of All Might's chest was way more damaged than the rest. Well, what do we have here? Izuku questioned while All Might was horrified that the villain had found his weak spot. That looks pretty bad. Wonder what will happen if I do this. Izuku spiked while morphing his arm into spiraling saw blades before adding Haki. Izuku wasted no time as he plugged it into All Might's injury, who could do nothing but scream in pain. Meanwhile Tamura was conflicted on how things were developing. On hand, All Might was being beaten easily, and if this kept up he'd be dead in a few minutes. On the other hand, the League of Villains had nothing to do with it. It was all the work of the underworld crime lord Joker. The League couldn't even claim Joker was part of the League without risk of becoming the target of his wrath. Kurogiri, seeing the Decayer's distress, tried to stop him from doing anything stupid. Calm yourself, Tamura. While it is true things are not going exactly as we planned, the result we want will still be reached. But Nomu, Tamura tried to argue, was our plan when we did not know Joker would be here. If Joker kills All Might, we will still have gotten what we wanted and still keep Nomu's true abilities a secret. Kurogiri explained, with Shigaraki reluctantly nodding. Meanwhile Joker had decided to end this once for all as he placed his right foot on All Might's back, pinning him on his stomach while using the glint power on his left as he raised it to kill All Might. No, it can't end like this. All Might thought desperately as he tried to think of anything that could help, but because of the pain and the blood loss he couldn't think straight. Well, All Might, this is goodbye. It ain't personal, just business. Izuku told the hero, and it was true. All Might was a good hero who, if he knew their parents were in danger, he would have done his damn best to try and save them. It's that All Might would never allow their plans to work as long as he was alive. So that only left the option of killing him. Just before Izuku brought his foot down, a giant hand swiped through his chest as it turned to light. Get the hell away from him, you monster! A female voice yelled as Izuku saw who tried to attack him. Turns out it was Itsuka Kendo. Before the villain could respond, something came running up trying to punch him, only for the attacker to hit light and land besides Kendo, revealing it to be Eijiro Kirishima. Attacking a school is so unmanly. The hardening quirk user shouted randomly. This caused Joker to raise an eyebrow behind his mask. And attacking someone from behind is. This caused the redhead to sputter, but before he could respond there was a shout of, die. Izuku merely sighed, bored, having picked him up with his Haki long ago. Izuku didn't even bother with Logia intangibility since his bomb abilities prevented any explosions from hurting him. Without looking he grabbed the explosion user by the throat, and that is how he met his childhood friend again after 10 years. You know, it's rather rude to interrupt someone's conversation. Especially with yelling die like you did. Izuku scolded, with Bakugo trying desperately to get out of the bastard's grip and help All Might. Screw you, you bastard. I'll blow you to hell. Bakugo screamed as he unleashed explosion after explosion until smoke covered the three of them. Do you think Bakugo got him? Kirishima asked nervously as Kendo could only stare in concern. They got their answer moment later when the dust cleared and the three were revealed with the Joker showing no damage from the explosions. Impossible. There's no way that did nothing. Kirishima screamed horrified that an onslaught from one of their strongest did nothing. Izuku could only chuckle in amusement at the disbelieving look on the three students' face, none more so than Bakugo. Sorry friend, but explosions don't work on me, but I've got something that I'm sure will work on you, Izuku said. Then to Kendo and Kirishima's horror, Bakugo began to shrivel up and soon was looking like nothing but skin and bones. Well, aren't you little heroes in a tight spot? Your teacher and friend on death's door, but if you're smart and lucky you might have a chance to save one of them. But that's only if you work together. That includes you half and half. Izuku directed his last comment to the fountain, and from behind it came a frustrated Todoroki who had for the last few minutes trying to come up with a plan. Todoroki, what the hell were you doing hiding? We needed your help, man. Kirishima asked him, frustrated that their strongest was apparently hiding. I thought I could wait until there was an opening then freeze him, but now that's not possible. Todoroki said, frustrated. Kirishima nodded, accepting the answer, and was about to say something when Izuku spoke. Not bad all things considered. Tell you what, I'll give you 3 seconds before I kill All Might. Try anything you want in that time to save him. Sound good? Good. The 3 students' eyes widened before all 3 ran forward. Kirishima hardening his body, Kendo enlarging her hands, and Todoroki covered his fist in ice. 3. The 3 students all tried to hit the villain so they could free not only All Might but also Bakugo, only to pass through him as he turned to light. 2. Kirishima yelled as he jumped up and tried a barrage of punches only to be backhanded away. 1. Damn it! Kirishima shouted as he watched Joker's leg fall with what was certainly a killing blow. All Might could only close his eyes and wait for the blow, which it did, but as a normal non-powered stomp. There was silence as everyone just stood there trying to figure out what happened until Joker turned his head. You truly are a pro, aren't you, Eraserhead? Joker said with a voice that just promised a mocking grin underneath the mask. Eraserhead was glaring, his one remaining eye so bloodshot it was actually bleeding. Being held up by the frog girl and the boy with purple balls on his head. This is your chance, Eraserhead screamed. He's vulnerable. You can hit him. All Might wasted no time, ignoring the pain. The symbol of peace used Oklahoma Smash to try and get Joker off of him, only to hit Mochi. I never said I didn't have other tricks to avoid being hit, Joker said, amused, before looking at the still breathing Bakugo husk and then throwing him at Kirishima. You can have this back, by the way. Kirishima was able to catch Bakugo and was starting to panic until Kendo spoke up. Get him to the water. He's dying of dehydration. If we get him to the water, that should fix him, Kendo yelled as Kirishima did as he was told. Joker meanwhile turned his attention toward Eraserhead as he begun walking towards him with said hero glaring and the 2 students shaking in fear. Now come on, Eraserhead. You know it's rude to interrupt someone else's fight. I think I'll have to punish you. Now what should I do? Izuku pondered as Aizawa was glaring and trying not to blink, knowing if he did they were all screwed. After all the other shit you've done to me, there's nothing else you could possibly do to me, Aizawa said defiantly, and to his surprise Joker was nodding with him. True, there's not really anything I could do. I mean, I stab out your other eye, but that's not my style, Izuku muttered as he kept looking at Aizawa before his gaze slowly turned to the frog girl. But there's plenty I can do to them, he said darkly. It took a split second for Aizawa to understand and push his students away before his left index was shot off by a Haki-covered piece of mochi. Well, what do you know? Joker chuckled, feeling his Logia powers return as Aizawa clutches his left hand and his students watched horrified. He can loving teacher who knew. With All Might. What are we going to do, All Might? That looks really bad, Kendo said beyond scared as she looked over the butchered remains of his chest. All Might was fighting to stay conscious, and in his hero form he was able to steady himself and opened his mouth to answer, only for nausea to hit as he puked up blood. TT Todoroki, use your fire to cauterize my wound, All Might ordered weakly while the boy in question was shocked and horrified by the order. I can't, Shoto said to the shock of All Might and Kendo. What do you mean you can't? Kendo yelled, shocked he wouldn't help. I swore that I would never use my flames in battle, Todoroki said with a glare causing Kendo to glare. Are you fucking kidding me? Kendo shouted at the ice and fire user only to get a glare of defiance in return. "What the hell are you screaming about, ham hands?" A shout was heard indicating the return of Bakugo with Kirishima following close behind. All Might told Todoroki to cauterize his wounds with his fire, but Todoroki refused. Kendo explained while glaring at him, which was soon joined by Bakugo's glare. "What the fuck, half and half? Go help All Might, damn it," Bakugo demanded, but all the ice and fire user did was glare. Bakugo, seeing this, just shoved past him. "Fuck you then, I'll do it. You ready, All Might?" All Might braced himself and nodded as Bakugo tried to cauterize the wound as best as he could, with All Might gritting his teeth through it all. It took a few minutes, but it was finally done and All Might was able to stand. However, before he could say anything, he was tackled away by a blur that turned out to be Nomu. "All Might, come on guys, we gotta help him," Kirishima shouted. However, before the group could move, a voice spoke out. "Don't be selfish, let them have their fun. I'm sure I can entertain you," a voice said from behind, causing to freeze before slowly turning only to see Joker. Izuku grinned. "You were expecting maybe Two-Face. Where's Tsuyu, Mineta and Mr. Aizawa? What have you done with them?" Kendo demanded of the monster in front of them. Izuku chuckled. "Let's just say I made sure they can't get in the way of our fun," causing the students to glare. "But that's not important, so how about we spend some time together?" The four needed no further prompting as they all charged him, while all he did was prepare one of his favorite attacks using the gravity fruit. Almighty push. The four stood no chance as all of them four blasted back, unable to fight against the force. You know, I honestly expected more from the premier hero school, especially from the Son of Endeavor. The look of hatred in Todoroki's eyes intensified. "Never call me that again, you bastard," he snarled as he sent a colossal iceberg towards the villains, which left Todoroki's right side covered in ice as he tried to stop shivering. Izuku raised his eyebrow at the response he got before turning his right hand and arm into magma. "You might want to move back. This is a big AoE attack," Izuku said as he turned his head to Kurogiri and Tamura, who did just that. Chuckling, Izuku turned his attention back towards the ice. He raised up his fist and punched forward as a massive fist of magma launched forward. The two attacks collided and the ice instantly evaporated, causing Izuku to smirk. He knew this kid's ice was nothing compared to Kuzan's. The magma fist then proceeded to explode and cause volcanic rock to rain down, forcing the students dodge or else they'd be crushed and burned. Note to self: add bomb power next time, Izuku thought to himself before turning to Todoroki. "So you've obviously got some daddy issues, and judging from that little beauty mark on your eye, it's pretty easy to see why," Izuku commented, causing Todoroki to grit his teeth from both anger and the cold. "But you know, I think I've got a way to make sure nobody notices your eye again," Izuku spoke lowly, with the four students narrowing their eyes in suspicion. "Oh yeah, and what's that?" Todoroki spat. Izuku smiled behind his mask. "Simple," he spoke before using shave to appear in front of Todoroki, surprising him as Izuku extended his hand right in front of Todoroki. "If we burn, the rest of you know can tell the difference." Cackling in mad glee when Todoroki was engulfed in a sea of fire, and Todoroki's blood-curdling screams filled the air, soon followed by the Joker's insane laughter. "Stop it, you psychopath," Kendo screamed as she enlarged her fists and tried to squish the villain between them, despite everything she's seen today telling her it won't work. To her surprise, however, she was able to trap him between them as the flames died out and Todoroki's burnt and bleeding body collapsed onto the ground. Kirishima ran right over and grabbed his body while Bakugo glared death at Kendo's enlarged hands as if daring the villain to break out. He's alive," he heard Kirishima whisper quietly, and when Bakugo looked back, the hardening quirk user actually had tears falling. He was so relieved. That didn't last long as suddenly Kendo cried out in pain as spikes jetted out all over Kendo's hands as she let go and deactivated her quirk as she looked at her hole-covered hands. "Sorry miss, but your hands were getting sweaty and I didn't want to get the smell in my clothes," Izuku said as he was revealed to have spikes covering his body. Izuku then deactivated the spike fruit. "So are you gonna stay out of my way or end up like the living charcoal over there?" Izuku asked Kendo while also pointing toward Todoroki. "Like hell, I'll give up. A hero always fights till the end," Kendo shouted as she ignored the pain and activated her quirk again as she charged him. Izuku felt his grin widened as he activated the poison fruit and used its signature technique. Hydra. Kendo could only stare in horror as the beast's head descended and engulfed her in its jaw as poison flooded her system, the wounds in her hands making it spread even faster and causing her to drop to the ground from the poison and pain. And then there were two. Izuku spoke as he approached as the two remaining students who glared murderously at the villain. Izuku, who noticed the glares, smirked. "What's with the looks? I've made sure that the attacks I've hit your classmates with aren't fatal. I'm nice like that." Bakugo lost it and flew towards Joker, using explosions to propel him. When he finally got close, he unleashed explosion after explosion until he couldn't create any more and finished it up by using both gauntlets, and through it all Izuku just stood there not bothering to land. Bakugo had just finished his assault and was trying to catch his breath when a hand shot up and once again grabbed him by the throat. "I think we've established that's not going to work," a voice said, and from the dust Izuku was revealed without a scratch. "So in the effort to save everyone's time, I'm gotta ask, do you have anything else to contribute?" Bakugo glared, looked him straight in the eye through his mask and punched his mask, though it was too weak to do anything. Izuku smiled. "I didn't think so." Suddenly Izuku's hand was covered in electricity, and before anyone could do anything Bakugo's body surged with electricity, and when Izuku let him go Bakugo's fried body dropped to the ground unconscious. "Well, Red, what's it going to be? Back off to fight another fight or charge forward and end up like your friends if not worse?" Izuku asked. Hiroshima gritted his teeth as he deactivated his quirk. Damn it, every part of him was screaming at him to charge and try anything to stop him. But he knew that wasn't the best answer. Hiroshima knew he only had a few good attacks of his quirk left before he had to give it a rest, and he could see there were villains getting back up, and there was no way he was going to leave his friends undefended. So with that he looked Joker straight in the eye, calmly walked up and grabbed Bakugo. Hiroshima grit his teeth as when he tried to grab Kendo but couldn't because of the poison. So he laid Bakugo down next to Todoroki before crossing his arms and watching out for anything that could hurt his friends. Izuku grinned seeing this. He chose to defend his classmates rather than attack. Izuku thought as he turned and begun walking back to Tamura and Kurogiri. Izuku respected loyalty, and seeing this earned the redhead a pass this time. Izuku had just made it to the two when the building shook and he turned to the source. All Might was standing there covered in steam and there was a hole in the ceiling. "Nomu," Izuku thought as he used his Haki to track him flying away before landing in a nearby wooden area. Izuku sighed, looks like he will have to pick him up later. Izuku had just made it to Tamura and Kurogiri and noticed the former was about to lose it while the latter was trying to calm him down. Izuku was about to speak when he was spoke up. "So Joker, looks like you failed. Your monster, your plan and your league. None of it was able to bring me down." All Might trying to scare the three of off as he was about to revert to his weak form. Tamura was shaking in rage. His master was wrong, All Might wasn't any weaker and Nomu was gone. To top it off, everything kept assuming all of this was Joker's plan. He was just about to yell at All Might and set things straight when someone did it for him. "Hold on a minute, All Might," Izuku began. "This is Tamura's plan and crew, not mine. I just thought it would be fun and decided to tag along." Izuku then turned to Tamura. "It wasn't a bad plan, but next time don't underestimate your opponent. Trust me, I've had my share of fuck-ups because of it. You understand, pal?" Tamura just nodded. He should be furious that anyone, even the Joker, would talk to him like that. However, Joker had been nothing but kind since their first meeting, and the way he criticized him reminded Tamura of his master. Seeing this, Izuku turned his attention back toward All Might and noticed he and the area around him was covered in steam. Grinning, Izuku raised his arm and something shot out of his hand and went right through All Might, who now had what looked like a paw mark on his chest. "Pad cannon." Izuku grinned before idly turning to the villains. "You wouldn't believe how many gloves I went through before I got that move down." All Might couldn't take any more as he felt himself turn back and steam covered him in the area. Everyone was confused before the mist cleared, and everyone was shocked to see what looked to be a man on the brink of starvation with wild blonde hair and sunken blue eyes. For the first time in years Izuku was shocked into silence as his Haki did confirm that this was All Might. Seeing All Might so weak and helpless add to the fact everything was being recorded, he did the only thing he could do. He laughed, He laughed so long and hard he might have passed out from lack of air. So that's what you really look like. No wonder no one could find anything out about your personal life. Izuku continued as All Might could only look down in shame as even from here he could hear the shocked and panicked voices of his students. Izuku seeing this walked over and bent down while placing a hand on his shoulder. Listen, I know this is probably one of the worst days in your life. From getting your ass kicked to failing to save your friends and students, and to top it off your secret was revealed. But at least it can't get any worse, right? He finished cheerfully before his voice went flat for what he said next. Wrong, it can get a lot worse, and it has. Just look over there, he indicated while pointing with All Might looking in the direction, and his eyes widened in fear. Kendo, Todoroki and Bakugo were all down and critically injured while Kirishima was trying to defend the three from villains. His quirk having long since failed, and he was covered in injuries while looking like he was about to pass out from exhaustion. How could you? He whispered before turning and glaring fiercely at the Joker as he used every last ounce of strength to glare at the Joker as he grabbed the villain by the collar. How could you do that to them? They're just children. Does that mean nothing to you? All Might roared, only to get a slap to the face sending him to the ground. However, Izuku grabbed him by the hair before he could hit it. If you truly believe that, then you're a fool. These students chose to be heroes and should be ready to face something like this. If they complain, then they clearly aren't cut out for this life. Izuku said before sighing and facing Kirishima. But let's see how they deal with the loss of a classmate, shall we? Izuku said as he raised his index finger and it started to glow. However, just before he could fire, his Haki flared to life. Tamura, watch out. He tried to warn, but it was too late as Tamura was shot in both arms and legs twice by the hero snipe as he and the rest of the teachers finally showed up. Dropping All Might, he went over to check over his injuries, and they weren't good. The day is lost. Joker, we need to retreat. The pros are here, as are the students that were scattered have returned. Yorogiri advised as he saw the staff and Class 1A meet up, and it looked like the students there were explaining about All Might if their disbelieving looks are anything to go by. Kurogiri has just pulled Tamura through the gate after he threatened All Might and was about to do the same with Joker when said clown spoke up. I think I'll stay. At Kurogiri's disbelieving look, he explained. I think I can get rid of a teacher or two, and it's not like they have a way to stop me. I'll even pick up a Nomu on my way back, he said cheerfully before speaking in a low, dark and sinister tone. Besides, I still have some things of theirs they might want back. Kurogiri hesitated for a split second before nodding and leaving with a, best of luck. What a nice guy, Izuku said idly before facing the gathered heroes. So who's first? He asked and got an answer from Present Mike as he launched a mass shout right toward him, which Izuku countered using the wind fruit. Air cannon. The blast ripped right through the shout and slammed into Present Mike, sending not only him but also Midnight and Hound Dog, who got in the whirlwind, flying through the roof like Nomu did earlier. Though his eyebrow did twitch when he felt them land and still alive. Seriously, there should be at least a couple of dead bodies by now, and he hadn't managed one. Was he losing his touch? That's it, he's going to a basic method next time. Next time proved to be right now as ectoplasm launched into the air and created clones, all of which were heading toward Izuku, who activated the Mochi Mochi no Mi and split his arc into multiple arms that tore through the clones, and one grabbed the original, bring him right to Izuku, who after reforming his arm slammed the hero into the ground, grabbed his throat and snap. Ectoplasm went limp and Izuku felt through his Haki the man's life leave him. Izuku grinned and dropped the corpse as he started to laugh. It's about time. Was anyone else getting blue-balled, or was it just me? Izuku questioned while still laughing. 1. The teachers meanwhile were glaring as they kept back the students who were shocked at seeing a pro-hero die while Smintos setting up defenses. I can't believe it, Snipe said angrily. We can't let this bastard live after this. He growled. Calm down, Snipe, we have to keep our heads clear. Principal Nezu spoke, though it was clear he was just as angry as the gun hero. Calm down. How the hell do you expect me to calm down? This bastard just killed one of our teachers and pretty much crippled those students. He yelled angrily while indicating toward Kirishima, who after making sure there were no more villains gave into exhaustion and passed out along with the rest of the other three. With All Might standing nearby trying to think of a way to help. Because that's exactly what he wants. Joker wants you to make a stupid mistake because of your anger. Nezu warned, concerned for everyone there. That actually brought another concern he had as he looked around. Why did it feel like they were missing people? But Snipe couldn't control his anger. All he could think about was how he killed ectoplasm and tortured his students with sadistic glee. It was too much. With a roar he jumped over the barrier Smintos created and fired every bullet he had at the villain. It would be his last mistake, Snipe realized as he was shot through the heart by a beam of light, and he landed on the steps and started tumbling down the steps. He'd be dead before he reached the bottom. The UA staff was panicking over how fast their fellow teachers were being taken out. Even Nezu couldn't think of a plan. The students meanwhile were freaking out by how easily the pros were dying. It was made worse when they saw some of their classmates in some rough shape. The three generals were enjoying the show and Kyoko was having trouble keeping a straight face. "Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Let's see if we can go for a third," Izuku said as he looked over the staff if there was anyone else he'd want to make into a zombie. The answer was given to him when Smintos sent a gigantic wave at him. "He'll do," Izuku thought as the wave hit, and a storm of dust kicked up around him. "Did that do it? Did we get him?" Vlad King questioned, and everyone's hope grew as there was silence and no movement from the dust. The generals had to suppress laughter at everyone's nativity. "Sorry folks, but you're going to have to do better than that." A voice spoke from the dust as despair filled everyone's stomach as Joker appeared from the dust without a scratch. "Seriously, is there anything that can stop this guy?" Sato questioned, looking like he was about to pull out his hair. The rest of the class wasn't faring any better as it looked like some of them were about to have a panic attack. Izuku cracked his neck as he prepared his next attack. To be able to control cement, truly a powerful quirk. Izuku commented, getting the attention of the heroes and students. "But it has nothing on the power to control the earth," Izuku said and raised his hand. Before anyone could react, a giant hand made of earth rose from the ground and crushed Smintos, sending blood flying everywhere. Everyone just stood there, stunned at how easily another teacher was killed. Before anyone could move, the hand dragged Smintos underground and putting the corpse next to ectoplasm while doing the same with Snipe, before all three were sucked inside the castle fruit and put into the freezer to preserve them for later. "Well, I think I'm done here," Izuku spoke. "I mean, unless anyone else wants to fight." Izuku looked around. Everyone had looks of anger on their faces and some were clenching their fist in frustration. "Well then I'll be." "Stop right there." Izuku did stop and looked toward the students and the one who yelled. He was wearing armor, had glasses and what looked like boosters on his legs. "Return our classmates at once," he demanded as his classmates looked at him in shock and concern. "Iida, what are you talking about? Return who?" Zero questioned as, like the rest of the class, he was afraid Iida had snapped. "Look around. Asui, Mineta and Mr. Aizawa aren't here. They're nowhere in sight and he was the last one to see them. He must have done something," Iida shouted, causing everyone's eyes to widen as they realized he was right. "So you finally realized it, huh?" Izuku asked mockingly, regaining their attention. "Took you long enough, but you're right, I did take them. I'll show you." Suddenly something started to come out of Joker's body and it looked to be black smoke. Liberation. Three figures flew out from the darkness, and to the hero's horror it was Mineta, Asui and Aizawa. All three of them were covered in blood and it looks like their bodies had been crushed. Aizawa was especially bad as his arms were pretty much all but gone, only being held on by a few strands of muscle and bone. Before anyone could move, 3 arms of Mochi shot out of Izuku's back and grabbed them by the neck, holding the students close while slamming Aizawa face first into the ground so he can't use his quirk. "As you can see, your friends are alive, broken and traumatized, but alive. And if you want them to stay that way, every last teacher here, All Might included, is going to do something from me," Izuku told them while the teachers were shaking in anger. "What do you want?" Nezu questioned through gritted teeth, buying time as he tried to think of a way out of this mess. Izuku grinned under his mask. "An apology," Izuku answered, causing the staff to blink in confusion. "I want you to bow and apologize to the whole country for failing as heroes," Izuku explained. "And if we don't do it?" Midnight asked, having arrived back with Present Mike and Hound Dog, with all 3 of them having been caught up on everything. "I'll execute them on live TV after proving to the world it's because teachers and heroes care more about their reputation than they do their students' lives." Izuku spoke, causing the heroes to growl. It'll take us about a week to. Nezu started only to be cut off from Izuku. Oh no, I've already decided on the date. Izuku spoke. When would it be then? Present Mike snapped his temper at his limit. Izuku chuckled darkly. I believe the sports festival is in a couple of weeks. Izuku started, causing everyone's eyes to widen in shock and horror as they realized what he wanted. I believe this apology would make one hell of a opening speech. Izuku cackled before tightening his grip on Frog Girl and Grape Boy. Of course, if you don't want to do it, I'll just go ahead and get rid of them. Izuku threatened. Stop, Nezu shouted, panicked. We'll do it, just don't kill them. He pleaded, which got another chuckle from Joker. Oh, I wouldn't dream of it. Of course I'll have to keep them to make sure you keep your promise, and if I see anyone, be they hero, police or anyone trying to find them or me, there will be consequences. Joker warned the UA staff. Now I believe that's everything we need to discuss, Izuku stated while the others watched Tsuyu and Mineta once again disappear into the darkness as they could do nothing but grit their teeth. To their surprise, however, he actually threw Eraserhead to the side. You know what, I'm in such a good, I'll give you back your teacher. You're welcome, by the way, Joker said before using the float fruit to fly. Now if you excuse me, I've got places to be and people to meet. Izuku waved before exited through one of the holes through the ceiling, discreetly grabbing and deactivated the spy drone as he left to go find Nomu. Leaving behind a defeated class and UA staff and his 3 generals who couldn't wait for his next move. It didn't take him long to find Nomu, as the beast was just waiting patiently in the woods ready for his next order. This made it easy for Izuku to get the beast through an air door and back to the bar, where both Shigaraki and Kurogiri were shocked to see him and Nomu. And they weren't the only ones. My, the stories truly don't do you justice, do they, Joker? A voice spoke from the TV, shocking the 2 criminals hearing their master speak, while Izuku just chuckled. What can I say? I aim to please. Besides, if you like that, wait until I really get going. I'll put on a show that will shake the world, Izuku exclaimed, having changed back into his civilian clothes. But if you want a sneak peek, watch the sports festivals and see what I have in store. You'll love it, Izuku said before leaving behind an intrigued Kurogiri, an excited Tamura and an amused all for one who was looking forward to seeing what the young man would do. Izuku meanwhile was walking down the road and looking for a place to eat. All the excitement from today left him starving, though he felt he left things on a low note and was thinking of a way to make up for it. Suddenly his Haki picked up what felt like 3 signatures around hero strength by themselves a few miles away. Facing that direction, he used the glare fruit to see who it was. When he did, he grinned. Oh yes, they would work just fine. And with that he made his way over to the hero's location. I keep telling you, you worry too much about your reputation, Mount Lady. Our job is to save citizens. Kamui Woods lectured, with Death Arms nodding in agreement. The 3 deciding to patrol together. Come on you guys, how can I not worry? Mount Lady was cut off as spikes appeared out of nowhere and impaled her. Well, I can think of a few things you should worry about more than your reputation, Izuku commented, revealing himself with his mask back on as he deactivated the clear fruit and spike fruit as Mount Lady dropped dead onto the street. Izuku looked at the 2 heroes. I don't suppose we can talk this out, can we? He questioned before jumping several feet back to dodge an enraged Death Arms punch, who then charged at Izuku with reckless abandon, ignoring Kamui's shout to wait. Izuku just grinned under his mask as he raised his hand and twitched his finger. Suddenly Death Arms' head flew of his body, landing a few feet away from his body. And then there was one. Izuku thought before using shave and appeared right in front of the shocked Kamui Woods before using finger pistol in rapid succession to strike all his vital organs. Izuku sighed as he watched Kamui Woods fall. Now that's how you end a day like today. It had been 3 days since the USJ attack, and the school and Class 1A had been given 2 days off to help recover both physically and mentally from what happened there. Now pretty much everyone was back in class. One would think an experience like that would crush the spirit of anyone, but they were stronger than that. However, they all had a hollow feeling in their chest, and an air hopeless filled the air as they waited for class to begin. Their eyes drifting to the 5 empty desks. 2 in particular, as they couldn't stand to think what their taken classmates were going through. So did anyone see the news the other day? Toru brought up as everyone flinched at the mention of that day, while the generals were inwardly smirking. The UA staff, All Might included was crucified by the media from what happened. From having 3 students and a teacher being critically injured to one villain being able to kill 3 pros with the utmost ease. The worst, however, was that they let 2 students be taken and didn't do a damn thing to stop it. So what do you think's going to happen, you guys? To the school, I mean? Denki asked, with the others looking at each other with worried expressions. I mean, I don't think they'll close the school after one incident, even though it was massive one. Hiroshima asked questionably. The school might not close down, but they should definitely fire all the teachers considering how pathetic they were during it. Kyoka said with a sneer, causing her classmates' eyes to widen in shock at what she said. Jiro, how dare you speak to of our teachers like that? They did the best they could and deserve our respect. Iida glared as he came to the instant defense of their teachers. And their best was pathetic, so don't make it sound like they were fighting back. They were scared shirtless and watched as their friends were killed, and our friends, their students, were taken while stood and did nothing. So don't go trying and defending them. They were useless, pointless, and a waste of everyone's time being there. Kyoka said, putting extra emphasis on her last words. She did because she was enjoying the effect they were on Momo, who had been getting worse and worse since the USJ, as she felt she could have done anything with her quirk to help. Iida looked ready to explode and many of the students looked ready to intervene, Fumikage and Mezzo included, though that was because they didn't want Kyoka to raise any suspicion with her slandering. Luckily Mina came to the rescue. So who do you think is going to be teaching today? She asked in general, and before anyone could answer the door opened, and to their shock it was Mr. Aizawa, though that wasn't what shocked him. His hands, arms, everything up to his shoulder were gone, replaced with robotic appendages. They could also see a red light coming from his right eye socket. MMMR. Aizawa, what happened? Iida asked, shocked. He knew the teacher's injuries were bad, but he never thought it was that bad. I simply made the logical choice. My arms would have taken too long to heal, and even then they never would have fully healed. This was for the best. Aizawa spoke nonchalantly, as he wasn't too broken up on the loss of his arms. Not like the loss of my eye, Aizawa thought as he felt a phantom pain in his right eye. It was easy enough to get him a mechanical eye that would let him see again. His quirk, however, was not so easy replicated, so he would have to live with a half-powered quirk. A bitter reminder of his failure. Mr. Aizawa, what's going on? Where are Bakugo, Kendo, and Todoroki? Denki asked, concerned for his friends. The answer he received shocked them, however. They're waiting outside, Aizawa said, and before they could ask or say anything he continued. Now look, don't say anything stupid. Bakugo and Todoroki are already on short fuses, so don't do anything rash. He warned. When he saw the class nod showing they understand, he sighed and went over, opened the door and motioned for the 3 to come in. When they did, the class gasped at the sight of them. Kendo came in with a smile like she used to, but it was strained, like she had to force it, and it wasn't hard to understand why. Her skin was pale and she had sunken eyes with rings underneath them. She now wore gloves, no doubt to hide her horribly scared hands. All in all, she looked deathly ill. Even the way she moved looked labored, like there was a great weight on her shoulders. Hey guys, glad to see you're okay, she said with effort, only concerning the class more. Bakugo was less obvious as he didn't have any changes appearance-wise, however it was his moments of that gave him away. He was twitching horribly, jerking all around and making all kinds of unnecessary movements. It looked like he was fighting for control over his body as he struggled with every step. He didn't say anything and just grit his teeth as he struggled to sit down. However, it was Shoto Todoroki that actually caused the class to gasp. He was covered in medical gauze covering his entire body. The only parts of his body exposed was his eyes, mouth, and some hair sticking out. His eyes were bloodshot and his mouth was set in an ugly scowl. No one said anything as he stalked himself over to his desk before sitting down and glaring at the class, who all turned away from him as Aizawa sighed. Anyway, as you know, the sports festival is coming up. However, Aizawa started while preparing himself for the headache that he knew was coming. Because of their injuries, Itsuka Kendo, Katsuki Bakugo, and Shoto Todoroki have been advised to drop out from this year's festival. The teacher said before he braced himself for the explosion of annoyance. However, the explosion did not come from the oblivious source, as Shoto slammed his hand on the desk, abruptly stood up, knocking his chair back as he glared at the teacher. Like hell, I'll do that. He roared at his teacher who wasn't going to let his student throw a tantrum. Even at half power, Aizawa was more than enough as he activated his quirk and glared at his student. Enough, he roared. We don't have time to this. He glared at the student. This is for your own good, and it's true we might not be able to stop you from competing, but think rational here. The strain it could put on you could permanently cripple you. Kendo could only sigh while Bakugo grit his teeth. Both knew beforehand they would have to sit out, and as much as they hated it, especially Bakugo, they understood it was necessary. For Kendo, she was lucky to be alive in the first place. The poison she got hit with, while not fatal on its own, was combined with her injuries in her hand could have killed her from shock. It was only thanks to 13 and their master control over their quirk that they were able to remove the poison before 13 was taken away for treatment. However, they still left Kendo in a very weakened state and in no condition to compete. Hell, she only stopped coughing up blood a few hours ago. Bakugo was a little more complicated. The lighting fried his nervous system, severely limiting his sweat output and thus his power. However, he was warned by Recovery Girl herself that his nervous system was still unstable and putting too much strain on his quirk could actually make his condition worse. So he was forced to bite the bullet and wait till next year. Shoto was less understanding. I don't care what you have to say, I'm competing no matter what you or anyone says. He said with a glare of defiance, causing Aizawa to glare before starting the class. Meanwhile, the class knew something was wrong with their teacher. He seemed annoyed, aggravated, like he was close to snapping. The average person would assume it was due to the fact of all that happened, and it was to an extent. But having seen him in action, the students knew he wasn't one to lose his cool. However, the three generals knew exactly what was wrong with him, and it was all thanks to a meeting. Flashback. Fumikage, with the help of the clear, calm and the through fruits, was easily able to sneak onto the grounds of Ua. The reason he was doing this was because they were informed by some of the cops on their payroll that Detective Naomasa Tsukauchi was meeting with the Ua staff. They didn't say what they were meeting about, but it seemed important. So there he was. After finding the right air duct, Fumikage, after giving Dark Shadow a spy drone, sent the quirk on its way. Since Dark Shadow was a part of Fumikage, it was able to use every devil fruit Fumikage was, as well as Haki. Finding the meeting room was child's play, and soon the spy drone was set and ready to start recording whatever these idiots had planned. Seeing the meeting about to begin, Dark Shadow settled down and grinned. This was going to be good. Well, I'm happy to see everyone was able to come, Principal Nezu said as he looked around at the group assembled. There was the teachers, including All Might, along with Detective Naomasa. Now then, we have to decide on what we plan to do. Principal Nezu started, though Aizawa was quick to answer. Not much to discuss, we have to do what the Joker wants to get Asui and Mineta back. He finished shortly, with Midnight, Vlad King and Power Loader nodding in agreement. Oh come on guys, you can't be serious about giving that guy what he wants. We'll get the kids back from that creep. We just need a plan. Present Mike told them, only to get a harsh glare from Aizawa. That guy was able to kidnap 2 heroes in training after taking down some of the strongest students we have, kill 3 pros, cripple me, and completely defeat All Might while exposing All Might's secret to not only the students but also the villains. So excuse me if I'm not entirely optimistic about a plan, especially when on a time limit. Aizawa finished. Toshinori bowed his head at the mention of his name and the reminder of his failure. Naturally, the students had questions, and luckily he was able to keep it vague by saying he got it in a fight a few years back. After that, the students swore to keep his secret, and thanks to Naomasa, who arrived on the scene, was able to tell they were telling the truth. However, it was the villains he was worried about. More specifically the Joker. Who knew what he could do with that information? Seeing the depressing mood, Principal Nezu tried to raise everyone's spurt. Well, it's not like Joker has any proof about what happened. So even if he does try to tell All Might's secret, no one will believe him. Principal Nezu reminded them, causing them to calm down. Meanwhile, Dark Shadow was silently chuckling at the false hope the heroes had. So what is your plan exactly? How are we going to find Asui and Mineta? Aizawa questioned, bringing the conversation back to what they were discussing earlier. It was Tsukauchi who spoke up. We believe a small team of about 7 or 8 lesser-known heroes along with myself will be able to sneak around some of his bases we know about and try and find information on any locations where they keep prisoners. With any luck, Joker might even be keeping the two of them at one of these locations to throw us off. The detective finished with Aizawa shaking. Did none of you hear what he said about consequences if we get police and other heroes involved? Who do you think will have to suffer those consequences? He practically snarled. And bowing our heads are better. If we do that, it's like admitting the Joker won. Present Mike said, yelling. He did win. Aizawa roared. We've already been over this, you bastard. Exposing All Might, killing teachers, kidnapping students while we teachers could do nothing. What are we supposed to call that? That's the purpose of the strike team, Aizawa. The Joker will be expecting big names to come after him. If we have a detective and some small-time heroes snooping around, he won't think twice about it. Tsukauchi spoke up. And just how are you going to convince these heroes to go after the Joker? Aizawa asked through gritted teeth. This question got Nezu and Tsukauchi to look away in silence before Nezu spoke up. We won't tell them we're hunting the Joker, instead we will tell them we're hunting Black Masked Gang who works for Joker. Crack. The room turned to see Aizawa's new fist embedded in the wall with cracks around it. Aizawa drew his fist back, took a deep breath. I'm done. I refuse to be a part of this if we put reputation over lives as well as withhold information from fellow heroes. Aizawa said as he turned to leave before stopping and turning back to the group. So when you all decide to pull your heads from your asses and are ready to be real heroes, I'll be ready to listen. Alright, that's it. What the hell is wrong with you? What about the Joker has you acting this way? You're never like this, so what is it about the Joker that's got you scared? Present Mike demanded, having enough of Aizawa's crap. The room was silent, observing Aizawa, waiting to see what he would do. You want to know why I'm afraid of the Joker? Aizawa asked, with everyone nodding. Okay, how about the fact he's tortured and butchered every underground hero that's ever gone after him? There was dead silence as the group stood in shocked silence. Not even Nezu or Tsukauchi knew that. Working in the criminal underworld, his main opposition were underground heroes. And none of them were exactly forthcoming with information about the underworld. Aizawa was a prime example of that. Everyone focused on Aizawa again when he started talking again. Black Canary, Black Widow, Hawkeye, The Question, Green Arrow, Huntress, Red Hood, all underestimated the Joker and all were tortured and butchered. How do you know it was the Joker? Midnight asked, shaken and terrified by hearing one villain was able to kill so many heroes. The face. Everyone had a twisted smile carved into their faces with a knife. Aizawa finished seeing how shaken everyone was, with Midnight looking like she's about to puke. Aizawa, after seeing everyone lost in thought, left without a word. It was silent for a moment before Nezu spoke up. Regardless of this new information, I still believe if we can gather information on some of the Joker's hideouts, we can launch a large-scale attack. He finished with the teachers reluctantly agreeing. After that, the group decided on the heroes who they would use and the bases that would be attacked. All the while Dark Shadow was grinning and recording. Flashback ends. After that, Fumikage returned the safe house where Kyoka and Mezzo were waiting. He quickly informed them of everything he and Dark Shadow learned. After that, they sent the information and recordings to Izuku, who responded by telling them he'd take care of it and to enjoy the show. The generals were knocked out of their thoughts when Kirishima raised his hands. Excuse sir, but I've got a question. He spoke uncertainty. Aizawa sighed, expecting something like this to happen. What is it? He asked his student, even though he had a guess. Sorry sir, it's just who is the Joker? He asked the question that everyone was wondering. Aizawa sighed and rubbed the bridge of his nose. This was going to take a while, he could tell. The Joker is the #1 criminal in Japan, and the leader of the criminal organization, the Yonko. It's said he has a hand in multiple crime rings. Drug trafficking, weapon smuggling, the black market, illegal gambling, and pretty much every other crime you can think of. He told his class, who were shocked at what they were told, except for the generals who were interested in seeing how much the heroes actually knew. It was Uraraka who spoke next. Wait, why is the group called the Yonko if only one person in charge? The name refers to the top 4 members of the organization, with the Joker being at the top and the other 3 being the 3 generals that answer directly to Joker. Aizawa explained. With the class looked more disturbed, with Aizawa continuing know what they would ask next. The generals are the strongest members of the organization after the Joker. Like the Joker, we don't know their true names, but we do know that they've been with the Joker since he emerged, as well as some personal information on all of them. The first is Noah's Arsenal. Objectively speaking, they are the strongest fighter of the three as well as the leader of the Vanguard unit. It's said he's never been touched no matter whom he's up against. Rumors have it that earthquakes seem to occur wherever they fight. The next one we know of is the one known as the Shadow. They are reported to be the leader of the assassination unit as well as the raiders. Despite the name, people claim that in a one-on-one fight, the Shadow will always win. It's also been reported that a monstrous roar could be heard from areas where they've been reported, as well as weird weather patterns. Finally, we have the Soul Queen. Judging from the name, we're going to say they're female. She's the head of the torture and investigation squad. Those she leaves alive are nothing but unresponsive husk, that's if they don't take their own lives. When it comes to combat, reports say she's never been hurt, despite people getting clear hits on her. Not much is known about her quirk, but her opponents have been said to just drop dead from fear. Aizawa finished his explanation. The entire class was terrified at what they were told, while the generals were grinning. If all the heroes had were the aliases, positions and rumors of their favorite devil fruits, they were screwed. Kyoka, holding back a grin, raised her hand. "Excuse me, sir, but what about the rest of the organization? Surely the heroes have to have something?" she asked, with the pro shaking his head. "Unfortunately no. The few times we've captured on of the crew members, regardless of their rank, they wouldn't say a thing. All we know is that their numbers are huge. They've also managed to subjugate every other gang in Japan." Aizawa finished explaining everything that was known about the Yonko. It was silent for a moment as the class finished taking in everything they were told. Kendo slowly raised her hand. "Sir, why did you tell us all this? Surely the police would want to keep this secret?" she asked, with Aizawa nodding. "They would, however you saw how dangerous Joker is. I believe it's only right to tell you, considering you faced him," Aizawa explained before starting class as the students tried to focus on their lessons. But throughout the entire day the class would keep looking over to the two empty desks while praying that their friends were safe. All the while the generals were mentally smirking, watching future heroes grow more and more fearful. Line break. Izuku was sitting in their main base at the moment, an abandoned airport, with sitting in a throne-like chair. He was busy reading reports while also stroking the hair of a girl who was sitting in his lap when there was a knock at the door. "Joker, it's me, I have news," a voice sounded from behind the door. Izuku looked up from the reports toward the door as he handed them to one of his men that were guarding the room before looking at the girl in his lap. "Neo," he said, getting her to look at him. He motioned his head toward the door, causing her to nod as she quickly and silently made her way to the door and opened it to reveal the newcomer. This was Samuel Stearns, otherwise known as the leader and the head of the Yonko's bio department. "Hello Samuel, what kind of news do you have?" Izuku asked, with Stearns smirking. "The best," Samuel said simply. This caused Izuku to raise an eyebrow. He hadn't seen Stearns this excited since he perfected the Smile Devil fruit, getting them to an 100% success rate while also branching out into Paramika and Logia and increasing the power of Zone. At the end, these were the results. Zones could now become the full animal or just part of their bodies. They cannot, however, turn into a hybrid form. Paramikas are basically the same as they real ones, except their effects are lessened. Logias, while not being able to become elements, can create and control elements at least on par with Endeavor. Samuel's smirk widened. "Project Titan is ready to begin testing," he said simply as Neo's eyes widened and a smirk came to Izuku's face. Project Titan was designed to enhance every physical capability by an insane degree while also mixing in smiles. "How far are we into testing?" Izuku asked, curious, with Samuel losing his smile as he lost his smile and shook his head with a sigh. "Sadly, we're at the very beginning. It's still very unstable and has killed any prisoners we've used it on, and we haven't even begun to add the smiles," he finished, with Izuku letting out an annoyed sigh. "The main problem is the lack of test subjects. Allying with pretty much every criminal and thug limits our options," Samuel begun again before a cruel smirk came to his face. "Which is why I have come to you with an idea. Why not use the children?" he asked Izuku, referring to the two UA students who Izuku captured. Izuku shook his head. "Sadly, that isn't an option. I have a deal with UA, And until I see that they don't do what I ask, the students will stay as the heir. Izuku told him, with Samuel nodding, accepting the answer before an idea came to him. What about that blonde meathead that's placed in the cell next to them? Samuel asked. You mean muscular? Oh no. I knew he was perfect for when the Titan formula was perfected. There's no way I'm using him now. Izuku denied instantly. The two fell into silence while Neo just sat there in silence. Suddenly a hurried knock came to the door as the voice of one of Calculator's informants came through, telling them he had important news. When given permission to enter, the informant did as he quickly handed Izuku the papers in his hand before hurrying out of the room. Izuku looked over the papers and a smile quickly came to his face. Samuel, I think we've got a solution to our problem, he told the man as he handed the papers to the scientist, who chuckled. Oh yes, they'll do nicely. Line break. It was the day of the sports festival, and for most it was a day of fun and excitement, but for others it's a day of depression and frustration. The ones feeling the anger is the UA staff, who will give in to the Joker's demand, and Class 1A, who knew was the only class that knew what was going to happen. As the classes stood on the field, people did notice that a couple students of Class 1A were missing, and it was true as Katsuki Bakugo and Itsuki Kendo were sitting in the seats reserved for Class 1A, wiry Bakugo scowling and Kendo a sad smile on her face. It was finally time to begin. Normally this would be when the class representative would give a speech, so people were confused when some of the teachers walked on the stage with resigned looks on their faces. Are you ready, sir? All Might asked Nezu quietly, who nodded before turning his head slightly. Any word from Naomasa? The principal asked, with Toshinori shaking his head. They lost communications with the team about 10 hours in, and Toshinori was worried as he recalled what Aizawa said. Nezu could only sigh sadly before facing straight. It was time. Greetings everyone and welcome to UA's annual sports festival. However, before we start, we have a matter we have to deal with. He began with everyone but Class 1A growing confused. This has to do with the UA incident and our actions in it, or our lack of actions. Because of our lack of actions, we led a crop of young heroes were greatly injured, and as well as 3 of our staff being killed. Our worst mistake was allowing 2 of our students to be kidnapped while we were powerless to stop the one responsible. At that moment the entire staff bowed their heads to the world. All we can do right now is apologize for our failure and assure you that this will never happen again, he said as the entire stadium was dead silent as no one moved. That's when clapping was heard. Everyone looked around trying to figure out where it was coming from, because this wasn't the normal kind of clapping. This was slow, sarcastic and mocking. However, everyone froze when the screens went static for a moment before a figure appeared on screen in a green and purple suit with a sad clown mask, standing alone in complete darkness as he continued to slowly clap. The audience gasped in terror as they recognized the man from TV. This was Joker. Bravo, bravo, what a lovely speech, he said slowly. I believe we all truly felt that, didn't we, boys? He asked as 9 figures were suddenly revealed, with 8 of them tied down in chairs and 1 of them in a cage. All of them seemingly unconscious. The UA staff gasped. It was the squad they put together to find the Joker in the first place, with All Might gritting his teeth at seeing his friend beaten and locked in a cage. Joker, what is the meaning of this? He roared at the villain, who raised an eyebrow at this. Really? You're asking me that? Wow, you really are a coward if you're not even willing to take responsibility, he told the hero over the screen. Coward, I'm not the one hiding behind a mask, All Might shouted back, with Joker chuckling in response. Fair enough, I suppose, Joker said as he moved his hands up to the mask. Let me fix that, he said as he removed the mask, and everyone gasped at the face that was revealed. As everyone was gasping at what they thought was the Joker's true face, no one noticed Jiro snickering quietly. Nezu meanwhile wanted to get to the matter at hand. Enough, Joker, what do you want? He questioned, with Joker chuckling. Oh, don't worry Neezy, I'm getting to that, Joker said as he pulled out a switch. But first let's wake up our friends here, he said, and with that he flipped the switch. Immediately all the captives' eyes snapped open as they all screamed in pain as electricity shot through them all. All the while the whole world was watching, horrified at scene before them. Once the lighting dies down, the 9 prisoners were trying to catch their breath before finally looking up to see who was responsible. Naomasa and the 8 heroes' eyes widened in shock and horror for different reasons. Mayomasa because they were caught and the other heroes because they knew nothing about the Joker. Before anyone could say anything, Joker raised his hands. Now, I know everyone has questions, but I have some things to share with everyone first. He spoke before spreading his arms in a grand fashion. The first is a little video I like to call the USJ incident. He announced with the UA staff eyes widening in alarm while everyone else talked in hushed whispers. No one noticed All Might shaking in fear that his secret was about to be revealed. Joker, seeing everyone's reaction through his own TV, grinned. Now then, lights, camera, action. It was at the point the film started as the world saw what happened that day. The world watched as the class was separated while Aizawa took down cannon fodder before going to face the Joker. It was at that point the horror show began. The audience could do nothing but watch as Eraserhead was brutally beaten and tortured. How he had both of his arms broken for not revealing All Might's location. A few people couldn't handle seeing Aizawa losing his eyes and either vomited or passed out. Hope did bloom in the people's hearts when they saw All Might burst through the doors. That was quickly stomped out when they saw that All Might couldn't even touch the villain. Screams emerged from the audience when they saw All Might get critically injured while All Might bows his head in shame at what's about to come. The people saw students All Might get pinned and was about to be killed before students appeared to try and save them. When they saw Bakugo get grabbed and about to be killed, the people's eyes widened in fear only to sigh in relief when Aizawa saves them, though that didn't last long when they saw Joker turn his attention to Eraserhead before shooting off one of his fingers. It only got worse from there as they saw a few students try and fight Joker. With the audience getting more and more pale with each student getting taken down, it got especially bad when they saw Todoroki get burned. When Joker was done and he was walking toward the other villains, everyone thought it was over except for the UA staff and Class 1A who knew the worst was yet to come. It was at that point Joker had reached the villains when All Might appeared again. All Might said a few words to the three before Joker shot something at All Might that hit him. All Might fell to one knee as steam covered him. The All Might in the stadium just clenched his fists as he heard the startled gasp and confused yelling as his greatest secret and shame being revealed while the rest of the world tried to figure what happened. However, they had no time to discuss it as they then had to watch the teachers show up, only for three of them to be butchered and for their corpse to be stolen. Finally it seemed the nightmare was over as Joker seemed to finally leave. However, before he could go, one of the students shouted at him to give back their classmates, confusing the audience until to their horror Joker brought out two students and Eraserhead. It was here that Joker paused the video. Hey there, sorry to interrupt, but I need you to pay very close attention to this next bit, he told them as he continued the video. It went on to show Joker making his demand of an apology before threatening to execute the students. It was the next bit that caught everyone's attention. If I see anyone follow me, be they heroes, police, anyone, there will be consequences. After that the video pretty much ended and present-day Joker was back on screen. Now before we continue, I want to prove I'm a man of my word, Joker said as another image appeared in the bottom left corner. It took people a few seconds to realize it was video footage of the USJ. Suddenly a portal opened in front of it as two figures were pushed through before the portal was quickly closed. It took 5 seconds for everyone to realize it was Tsuyu Asui and Minoru Mineta. Both looked to be in rags of the hero costumes they wore in the USJ. For the most part it looked like they were relatively unharmed, proving Joker kept his word for the most part. However, it was their faces that gave the truth. Mineta's face looked like it was stuck in a permanent state of despair, like he was ready to just end it all. While Tsuyu just had a blank look on her face, while her eyes had a 1,000-yard stare. Seeing this, recovery girl who was watching from her temporary office practically flew down the hall, uncaring who she knocked out of the way. Her mind only won the two students. Joker was now back on screen fully. Now I wish this is where I could end it, Joker began again as he looked around the dark room and the 9 prisoners. I wish this was the point I could have a good laugh at the heroes and be done, but sadly I have deliver some consequences. He finished with a shake of his head and spoke in a tone to show he didn't mean it at all. Fuck you, you bastard, one of the heroes roared with the other 7 joining in. We has nothing to do you. We were hunting Black Mask, he shouted with the others roaring in agreement. Joker merely smirked at the lone detective in the cage. So are you gonna tell him or should I? He asked with the detective remaining silent. Wait a minute, tell us what? One of the heroes asked as he and the others grew confused. Naomasa said nothing as Joker just chuckled. Really not a word. Fine then, I'll tell them. Better yet, I'll show everyone. Joker said as he pressed another button on the remote as another video began to play, and the UA's staff eyes widened seeing it was footage from their meeting, leaving them to wonder how the hell they got this footage. Joker grinned as the world saw what the teachers planned, how they planned to send in heroes blind on a suicide mission. How they ignored Aizawa and that they're making the same mistake that cost so many heroes their lives. Everyone was silent when the film ended as Joker quietly chuckled before speaking. Well, what do you know? Top tiers doing what they want with no regard to the ones beneath them, it's sad really. He spoke as he looked over at the 8 shocked heroes with Naomasa lowering his head in shame. Well, it's time to get down to business. Joker spoke before clapping his hands. Lights. He shouted as light suddenly flooded the room, blinding the 9 in the room, and when they could see again, their eyes as well as everyone's in the stadium widened in absolute horror. The 10 of them were standing in a giant cage with electrified spiked metal blocking any way out. That wasn't what terrified them, however. Surrounding the cage were thousands of men wearing clown masks and makeup. Every single one of them was shouting and making death threats. Joker grinned seeing this before flying up in the air. Are you ready? He shouted, causing the audience to roar before going silent at their boss's gesture. Now we're going to play a little game. Attached to the dear detective's chest is a heart monitor. Joker began as everyone noticed the machine on the detective's chest. Now the rules are simple: if the heroes want out, they kill the detective, and if the detective wants out, he must kill the heroes. Joker explained as he pushed another button that released the heroes and lifted the cage. So any questions? Joker asked, looking around. Are you fucking serious? There's no way we're killing each other just to get out. A hero shouted with the others and Naomasa agreeing, all expecting the clown to get angry, but to their confusion he just smiled excitedly like he was hoping for this outcome. Oh yes. Joker begun only to appear right in front of the detective, a weird gun pointed straight at him. I was hoping you'd say something like that, he said as he fired and what looked like a dart hit Naomasa. For a second nothing happened save for Joker disappearing only to appear outside the ring. Suddenly Naomasa dubbed over in excruciating pain as his body began to bulge and contort. All Might along with the rest of the world could only watch in horror as the detective became a monster. The monster looked around for a moment before seeing the heroes and snarled. Joker smirked. Ding. Before any of the heroes could do anything, the monster charged, grabbing 2 of the heroes by their heads and crushed their skulls, killing them instantly. This seemed to snap the others out of their daze as they reluctantly agreed to fight. One of the heroes' foot ignited with flames as he charged the monster. Just as the hero was about to hit him, the monster quickly turned to the side, causing the hero to miss completely. Before the hero could do anything, he was grabbed by the leg and slammed into the ground, and before he could move, the monster's foot slammed into his chest, caving it in and killing him. The next one charged the beast while turning fingers into spears, hoping to stop the beast fast. However, all the monster did was grab 2 of the spear fingers and rip them of the hero's body. Before the hero could scream, the 2 spears pierced his throat and heart. The 4 remaining heroes, seeing their comrades killed so easily, charged with reckless abandon, not even using their quirks. It was child's play for the beast to pick them up and slam into the wall, turning them into a bloody smear on the wall. The Joker grinned as his men roared in delight at the scene, while over in the sports festival everyone could only look on in horror and disgust, while Toshinori was crying at seeing the monster his friend was forced to become. However, Toshinori then noticed Naomasa place his hand over his heart and stagger and shout like he's in pain, before falling on his back where he laid there unmoving. Joker just looked at corpse. Well, that was unexpected now, wasn't it? He asked before placing his hand to his face. Note to self. Get stronger test subjects, he said, making sure he could be heard before facing the camera again as a few of his men went into the cage to retrieve the corpses and take them to Medusa. So everyone, as you can clearly see, we're still in the testing stages for this little project of ours. But don't worry, we'll get it right soon. And when we do, it'll be glorious. A terrifying monster, an unstoppable force. Joker chuckled before looking straight at the camera. A real doomsday machine, and soon I'll have an entire army of them, he shouted while throwing out his arms in a grand fashion. Well, I'm thinking I've wasted enough of everyone's time. Have a nice day and wonderful sports festival, ta-ta, he said as the video feed ended, leaving the arena in a deathly silence. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Now we will see you in the next video.